Arrol is a boy from a family gifted in both magic and swordsmanship, but he is labeled as classless. However, Arrol believes he can endure, and soon discovers that he is the strongest mage in the world, possessing an extraordinary power that will amaze everyone. The story begins in a quiet and cozy village, where in one of the houses a family is eagerly awaiting to find out which class their son will be blessed with. Even though he himself doesn't seem as excited as the others, his little sister is so happy that she's sure her brother Arrol will get the most powerful class. The mother comments that the boy will then become very popular among the girls, but the little girl, in a daze, responds that Arrol is too young to be thinking about such things. The father points out that he was surrounded by kittens when he was his age, but none of that seemed to impress his son, who stayed away from the conversation. Although this issue of being graced with a class was also on his mind, in this world, God blesses every human being with a class when he reaches the age of 10. Then, the skills necessary to perform their role are passed on to that person, which can range from a powerful wizard to a simple baker. After the family gathering, the moment finally arrives when the blessing ritual begins, and one of the community's religious figures takes the lead in the process in the city temple, in front of a statue of a goddess. Soon the first child is called to the stage. Then the religious man places the scepter on the boy's forehead and feels the power of the flames in him, as well as the smell of iron and hammer, and thus the boy becomes a blacksmith. As time passed and the children presented themselves to receive their classes, Ariel's sister took pride in the bloodline to which they belonged, which would certainly influence the blessing and make her brother one of the powerful class. When Arrol is called, everyone present is eager to know the future of the village's most famous couple, known as representatives of very advanced classes, the Sword Princess Farah and the Archmage Leon. On stage, the religious man asks Arrol to close his eyes so he can feel the goddess's blessing. However, the boy feels absolutely nothing, as does the person responsible for the ritual. The public begins to become anxious in the face of this lack of response. So after analyzing this rare case, the religious man comes to the conclusion that Arrol is a classless child. The sister is outraged and refuses to believe this is the truth, just as the parents are very frustrated. After this event, Arrol is back at home, training in the backyard with a sword, and being comforted by his parents that since they will work after they retire, then the boy does not need to worry about getting a job. Arrol insists that he doesn't want to be a burden to his parents. Then the little sister, pretending to be the older sister, arrives to say that she will help the guy as she always did. Tired of this talk, where he always seems like the poor guy, Arrol gathers the family together to make one thing very clear. He doesn't care about this whole classless thing. After all, he studied fencing with his mother since he was little, and even if he didn't gain any classes, he can still wield a sword and his hard work will pay off someday. The mother is moved by the boy's maturity at such a young age, and his father is confident that Arrol can turn fate in his favor when he grows up, just like the little girl always knew her big brother was the best. Tired of being treated this way, Arrol leaves to continue his practice at the training ground. Arriving there, two boys simulated a duel where both demonstrated impressive sword technique. According to them, having a class is amazing because they could feel the strength flowing from within their bodies. When Arrol shows up, the duo recognizes him as being out of ritual class and asks what he's doing there. Arrol explains that he just came to train like anyone else. Then one of the boys tells the advantage that they, as sword shins, don't need to train and just come to the training ground to check their skills. To demonstrate what he's talking about, the boy invites his partner to start the duel again. Then the duo once again displays that strength that Arrol never had and never will. With each blow they struck, the heavy sound of air along with the collision of swords suggested that they were two powerful 27-year-old barbarians from Gladiando. Watching the fight, Arrol ponders that the first technique a swordsman learns is basic fencing, which in itself is enough to make these two boys quite capable fighters. However, the observer didn't want to just watch, so he called any of the boys to train with him. The cockier of the two gives a mocking laugh and points out that the intruder doesn't stand a chance, but he's sure he'll give in, angry at the guy's certainty. The challenged person first asks if the challenger has divine protection, even if he is classless, which Arrol confirms without much enthusiasm. Divine protection is another blessing granted by the goddess, but unlike classes, absolutely everyone has the right to receive this gift as soon as they are born. This protection is like an invisible web that wraps around the body and absorbs damage. But of course, if you take too much of a hit, you'll end up feeling the pain. This way, the cocky guy can fight without fear of taking his rival to the grave. However, Arrol asks that the opponent also be prepared to burn his tongue. This provocation makes the brat even angrier, and this anger makes him move forward without the dispute even formally beginning. Arrol thinks quickly and not only blocks the blow, but also spins his sword to open his opponent's guard, leaving the boy completely furious. Driven by the force of hatred, the suspect attempts another sword strike, but is again stopped by his opponent's block. Next, the fight is shown to be completely controlled by Arrol, and since he doesn't want to let this go, Marenta even calls his colleague to join his rival, a request that he promptly fulfilled. Arrol escapes a cowardly attack from behind, but he doesn't complain, as he loves challenges. And having two opponents of the same age makes this training very beneficial, since he was always being scolded by his mother during training at home. At this point, Moreto begins to complain that his partner didn't attack correctly, making Arrol wonder if these classy people can't learn to work as a team. Because of the anarchic way they fight, they might even and be easy prey. Convinced of this, Arrol advances and knocks Bettina out of the duo with a blow to the chin. Now all that's left is the alpha of the duo, the final boss, who threatens his opponent with words. But when it was time to really show it, he tripped over his own companion and was left completely exposed to a blow to the back of the neck, which was the flat part of the blade without using the cutting part. Otherwise, the worst would happen, as if the shame of having lost in those conditions wasn't enough. The duo still grumbles that RA overtook them, and since they didn't accept defeat, the three agree to a rematch. However, another boy arrives at the training camp and tells the losers to stop this nonsense. After all, on a real battlefield, no enemy will care about the crying of these two clowns. The cocky one of the duo immediately insults the guy, but his colleague tells him to calm down, seeing as this Redhead is a tough guy. That said, the Redhead approaches Arrol and recognizes him as the son of Farah, the Princess of the Sword, since the skill he has in fencing could only have been inherited by that warrior. Either way, he tells this Victory not to go to the boy's head, so challenge him to a duel to show this classless man what a true swordsman is capable of. Bettina tells Morento that this Redhead has some relationship with the head of the guard and he himself. Confirms that Captain Evans is his father. Hearing that name, Arrol remembers that Evans is the guy who once went to his house to call his mother to hunt demons. However, he looks nothing like his son, as the adopted son had a much more rigid and suffering appearance. Revo is angry at having his father mentioned, and makes it clear that the captain is not only a master of the sword, but also a leader respected by all. Still, the son doesn't understand how Arrol's mother can be considered the #1 Zin sword in the village. Unconvinced, he asks if Arrol agrees with this, and he confirms that his mother is literally the most powerful person in the village. Redhead then remembers that children inherit their parents' talent, and that's why he's going to beat up this brat and prove that his family is much stronger than his. Furthermore, he had already been using the sword for over a year and had already learned intermediate techniques, so he would definitely defeat this brat. Therefore, as he has shown from the beginning, the area is not one to shy away from a fight, so the two immediately begin a dispute. This fight clearly demonstrates that it is a level above the previous one. This doesn't just impress the two previous rivals, but also the current challenger, who, although he admits that this fight is more balanced than he imagined, has a card up his sleeve for the crucial moment. In turn, Arrol analyzes that the anger that the opponent is feeling is making him strike in a more sloppy way, which can be a disadvantage. Taking advantage of this, Arrol quickly crouches after defending a spear strike or a thrust strike with the opponent's guard open. However, the Redhead responds quickly with his twin blade slash skill. On reflex, Arrol defends himself from the first, but the second cut hits his divine protection. The injured boy smothers the injured boy with his hand. Unable to understand how his rival managed to land 2 blows at once, while the Redhead takes advantage, saying that someone without class could never defend against such a technique. Either way, he recognizes that the kid has balls to accept this challenge. Days later, Arrol is woken up by the most annoying alarm clock on the face of the earth, which in this case is his sister. He accidentally headbutted the poor girl as he stood up, which ended up being an unintentional act of revenge. During breakfast, she asks her little brother to stop working out so hard, as one day she will create a world where the poor guy can live comfortably. Hearing this, Arrol gives a hearty laugh and says goodbye to her family to go to training. With his departure, his sister expresses concern that Arrol is staying late, training every day after coming home exhausted from the beating he took. However, to calm the child's mind, Farah takes the little girl to a chest, where several swords that were broken by Arrol during her training were stored. In other words, the guy knows how to handle himself. Even calmer, the boy's sister promises to make the world a better place for him. Meanwhile, Arrol focuses on her daily training and shows that she has learned the double blade attack, as she only let herself be hit so she could assimilate this technique. Speaking of which, a blow appears from Tokaya to ambush the human, but Arrol finishes off the creature with this very ability. However, a deep, sinister roar echoes from within the forest, and indicates that another, much more serious challenge lurks among the trees. Fearing that the village would be attacked, Arrol runs to alert the guard. However, a child's desperate cry makes him run into the woods. When he reached the injured person, it was none other than Redhead, who challenged him days ago. And on the other side was a hobby goblin, a type of creature that never appears around these parts. Besides him, larger goblins were dead, near the Redhead's training platform, which indicates that he killed the monsters while training. Given the enemy's size, Arrol believes he needs to focus more on his base than on his wrist movement, as timing will be crucial to hitting this giant. With this strategy in mind, Arrol adjusts her footwork and delivers the twin blade strike at just the right time. That's how it will be at RB Goblin. After that, seeing that the Redhead's holy water broke on the ground, the boy gives his own to the injured man to regenerate his divine protection. When drinking the water, the Redhead gets better quickly. Just a question how without the classic yellowish twin blades. Then the boy calmly explains that he had to train a lot to develop such a complex technique. Furthermore, he notes that he noticed how Red used this move several times in their fight and was beaten in that way that Arrol was able to learn later. In fact, he wants a rematch, which his rival accepts because he was saved. Since that way, the two don't waste time and go to the exchange right there. Already leaving, the two use the twin blade strike at the same time, But Arrol's power had one more cut. Then, when 2 cuts from each fighter absorbed each other by colliding, the latter crossed the field and hit the target squarely. The Redhead remembers that the name of the skill is Twin Blades and not Trembling. So, Arrol explains that there is no need to get caught up in these limiting details, as the important thing is to model a certain technique to better serve in moments of battle. The Redhead doesn't accept any lesson from someone without class, so he raises his sword once more, keeping in mind that he learned fencing from his father, Captain Ivans, so he can't lose under any circumstances, especially to a kid who hasn't even received a class from the goddess. Be that as it may, one thing is certain. You need to be careful against this opponent. However, even though he promised to be careful of the 3rd cut from the Twin Blade, Redhead falls under the same attack and loses the duel. He asks if Arrol went easy on him in the last fight, since he's visibly much faster than before. However, Arrol explains that it was thanks to his rival that he saw his limitations and evolved to overcome the weaknesses that led to his last defeat. Days later, during an evening tea, he will tell the family that Evans's son went to Brea today, a place called the City of Swords, where Faraja was part of the local guild before getting married. Arrol feels like going to a place like this, but wonders how far someone without class could go. Wherever it is, he'd like to find out. This will only be possible if he tries. This concludes today's episode of this anime. Wait for us in the upcoming episodes! If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to receive all that is new. 5 whole years pass by since that day, and our final decides to leave on a journey to Brea, the kingdom known for its swordsmanship. Both his mother as well as Captain Evans got their training from Brea, and Arrol wants to be the best of the best, just like them. On his way, he is accompanied by a couple of strangers, 2 of them being swordsmen of a high caliber. The guy has the barbarian class, whereas the woman is known for her dual-wielding class. Both of them want to hone their skills in Brea as well, but they can't seem to get along and are always at each other's throat. The cart driver tells them to settle down as all of them are going to the same location, but the man is too much of a misogynist and wants to send the woman back to the kitchen. Before they can argue more, however, the cart driver shouts at them to get their swords ready as they have got trouble. Arrol calmly looks up and spots a horde of orcs alongside their huge leader blocking their way with no intentions of letting them leave with their lives. 2 of the kids in the cart get scared and ask the barbarian guy to save them, but the barbarian, true to her name, is a total jerk and a coward who claims that he is not willing to put his life on the line for someone else and jumps from the cart before running away. The woman follows him, claiming that everyone is on their own in this world. The cart driver gets worried, wondering whether he can outrun the horde with his cart and the passengers. But before he could do anything, Arrol climbs down the cart without a single word and starts moving towards the monsters. The driver tells him to back off and run for his life, but Arrol simply ignores him before dashing towards the first orc and stabbing it in the heart. The driver is shocked by his incredible speed and accuracy, while Arrol simply uses instant transmission and keeps disappearing and appearing in front of the orc, taking them down one by one. Unfortunately, though, he gets surrounded by a bunch of orcs on all sides, which means that he can't really use his dash skill anymore. But to the driver's surprise, Arrol uses a legendary trick known as the Blade Dance, where he spins around like an idiot, cutting everyone down all at once. The cart driver doesn't understand how Arrol can use that skill, since it is only used by the swordsmen with the Sword Princess class, and they are always women. Arrol, however, isn't bound by the gender norms, as he wants to be the part of the LGHDTV community. So, he runs towards the orc leader, dodging its attack expertly before jumping on top of him and burying his sword deep within the orc's skull, killing it immediately. He finally returns back towards the shock driver and tells him to continue the journey to Brea. While one of the kids asks what class he belongs to, he simply replies that he doesn't have any class, which completely shocks everyone. He remembers how 5 years ago, when he showed his mother the new twin blade skill he learned, she thought that she was imagining things. But when Arrol told her that he is training to replicate any skill he sees, she is beyond overjoyed and promised to teach him all of the skills used by the Sword Princess class. Back in the present, he is woken up by the driver, who tells him that they have reached Brea, the land of swords. Arrol climbs down the cart and witnesses the town center flooded by people with swords strapped to their waists. Arrol turns towards the driver and asks whether he is an advanced level swordsman. At first, the driver claims that he is just a cart driver, but Arrol knows that only good swordsmen can identify the moves he was pulling on the spot. The cart driver admits that he is from the Holy Knights class, which is a pretty good class, but he gets bored of fighting so much, so he prefers to sometimes kick back and relax while pretending to be a normal driver. The Holy Knight realizes that this is probably Arrol's first time in the city, and tells him that he needs to find a guild for himself first, as without a guild, he won't be able to fight in any tournaments. And in this city, fighting and winning the turns is the main way swordsmen prove their worth and earn money. Arrol replies that he doesn't care about the money, but he wants to fight the strongest swordsman this place has to offer him. The driver tells him to be wary of toxic corporate guilds, as they can suck your soul and not in a good way. With that, the driver turns back and leaves, while Arrol moves into the city, looking at all the different people announcing their guilds, hiring people and swordsmen getting in line to try their luck for the better guilds. On the way, he ends up bumping into a blonde lowly who immediately latches onto him like Headless, telling him that she is the member of a famous guild and wants him to join them. Arrol is immediately immediately wary of her since she seems very desperate for members, so he refuses. The lowly, however, doesn't leave him alone and keeps pestering him to join their guild again and again. But Arrol is not a simp and keeps refusing. He asks her, what is the strongest guild here, and begrudgingly replies that the Shadowblade Guild is one of the strongest right now, since it has 8 class of swordsmen. He asks her for the directions, and immediately moves towards the guild. He gets stopped on the way by the guard who directs him towards the reception for the test. In the reception, he finds a huge line of budding swordsmen willing to try their luck to enter the famous guild, which excites Arrol as well, who wonders what kind of amazing people he would have to fight against. But when his chance comes to register, the receptionist laughs at him for being a classless loser, claiming that only people with an advanced swordsman class can apply for the guild trials. Arrol claims that he is sure he can pass their trial, but the receptionist refuses to register him. Saddened by this, he decides to leave when he spots 3 of the ranked swordsmen entering the hall, who are immediately treated like celebrities. He doesn't really care much about the theatrics, though, and immediately turns towards other guilds. But one by one, he gets rejected by all of them on the basis of him not having a class. Tired, he goes back into the city, taking out the letter his mother gave him and told him to find her old guild, since they will surely help her find something. He wonders whether his mom knew that he would have this much trouble, but he is thankful nonetheless. Before he can even read the letter, though, the blonde lowly latches onto him once again, claiming that they are still ready to take him in. But Arrol refuses again. She literally starts begging him to join the guild, telling him to do it as a charity, and points at a beautiful guild house, claiming that it's her guild. This surprises Arrol a little, but the lowly replies that their guild, known as the Dragon Fang, used to be the best in the country for a very long time. But lately it's gone to Quaker, and currently they are the weakest. But she wants to bring it back up to its former glory. The name Dragon Fang suddenly rings a bell as he remembers that his mom once told him about the leader of her guild, who was a dual-wielding swordsman who named the guild Dragon Fang after his special move. He quickly takes out the letter to look for the name, and it in fact is the guild that his mom was talking about. He decides to go in with her, which makes her very happy. But the moment they enter the room, he finds an old drunk man with only one arm on the couch. The man tells Arrol to go somewhere else since this guild is doomed and walks off, while the lowly tells him that he is her father, who used to be the second best swordsman of the city, but ever since losing his arm, he has never been the same. Arrol, however, surprises her by saying that he wants to join the guild. This makes the lowly really happy, and she quickly drafts up an agreement which Arrol fills up and hands it back to her. She reads it before asking why he left the class column blank. That's when Arrol replies that it's because he has no class. Bali snaps and gets a sword out, claiming that she thought he might be an advanced class swordsman since he was acting so hard to get. But before she could say any more, the door opens and a red-haired beauty named Rai enters the room. The lowly immediately runs towards her, crying that this classless idiot deceived her into joining the guild. This gets Ray's immediate attention, and she looks towards Arrol, claiming that she never thought she would see him here. Arrol is confused and asks how she knows him, and Ray looks surprised, claiming that they were from the same village and trained together. That still doesn't ring a bell. But finally, he realizes that the red-haired boy that he fought so many times before was actually not a boy, but a girl. The lowly knows about the story as well, and asks Ray whether this is the classless guy who defeated her when she was young, as she always thought that the story was a myth. Rai, however, is still stuck on that loss and challenges Arrol to a match immediately. The fight starts, and Rai immediately uses the twin slash attack, which Arrol thinks he can counter. But to his surprise, Ray's slashes blast through his own and hit him straight in the chest. This confuses him, but Rai reveals that she has the power swordsman class, which is why she is able to use a sword that is 5 times heavier than a normal sword, which means that she has 5 times the power in each sword strike. Arrol is impressed by the fact that she has still retained her speed, even after using a heavier sword. But that speed is nothing in front of his own speed. The next time she attacks, he creates an after image of himself which distracts Rai while he appears behind her and hits her in the back. Ray is confused and tries again, but the result is the same. She can't believe that Arrol is using a technique which is only used by the most advanced level swordsmen, while Arrol realizes that she is too tanky to take down with his normal attacks. Rai also knows this and tries to end the fight with her heavy blows, but Arrol uses his mother's signature counter, which brings Rai to her knees, and the fight is over just like that. With that, the lie's demeanor changes completely, and she welcomes him once again to their guild and tells him that their guild is in crippling debt right now. To get out of debt, they will have to enter the tournaments and fight as a 3-man group against other guilds who will have all 5 members in a team. Arrol, however, is excited at the prospect of fighting against strong opponents and looks forward for the opportunity to hone his skills even more. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Arrol wakes up the next morning and remembers that he is now part of his mother's former guild. He walks downstairs to see Reiner and Lilia sitting in the common room. Lilia welcomes him, but Reiner doesn't utter a word, so Arrol concludes that she is still holding a grudge against him for her humiliating defeat in their duel. Lilia announces that they will be entering the upcoming guild tournament over the weekend, since they meet the minimum requirements to register. Arrol doesn't know much about the tournament rules, so Lilia decides to give him a breakdown. She explains that the tournament is a one-on-one elimination-style match, and the guild with no members at the end of each duel loses. She also explains that guild teams are limited to 5 members, so they'll need to put in extra effort support since they are a team of only 3. Reiner doesn't fancy their chances in the tournament, but Lilia assures her that they are unlikely to be matched up against an A-rank swordsman. Arrel doesn't understand the ranking system, so Lilia explains that heroes are ranked from D to A ranks, with the strongest swordsman ranked as A rank. She points out that there are about 500 swordsmen in Brea, and only 20 of them are A rank. She reveals that both she and Reiner are B rank swordsmen, and she assumes he also falls into the B rank since he defeated Reiner in their duel. She is certain they will make it through the tournament if they don't get matched up against an A rank. She decides to go over to the Colosseum and check out the tournament brackets so she can know which guild they'll be facing off against. Reiner tries to leave Arrol in the common room, but he demands to know where she is going. She reveals that she is going to train. Arrol wonders what skills she has as a power swordsman besides her brute force skill. Reiner reveals that she possesses the gut skill, which makes her aura protection last longer than that of an average swordsman. Arrol fancies her skill, and he wishes he could learn it. He walks up to Reiner and sincerely begs her to hit him with her sheathed sword. Reiner refuses because she doesn't want to do him any favors, but Arrol insists because this is a good opportunity for them to build a lasting relationship. Reiner misunderstands Arrol's intentions, so he explains that he wants to obtain her gut skill indirectly by getting her to hit him with her sword repeatedly while his aura protection is down. Reiner scolds Arrol for being so dumb that he forgot skills are blessings from the ruler spirit and not something that can be chosen freely. Arrol reminds her that he learned the twin blade strike and the shadow skill without getting blessed with it. Reiner still isn't convinced, so they go down to the training grounds, and Arrol draws her sword with ease. Reiner is surprised that he can handle her sword so well without the brute force skill, but reveals that he has more brute force than she does because he built it up while learning his other skills. He reminds her that effort can match talent with dedication, and Reiner is convinced. She decides to help him with his training, but warns him not to complain because she won't hold back. She begins smacking Arrol with her sword, but Lilia suddenly comes running in a panic. She reveals that they were matched up against the Black Blade Guild, who are currently the strongest party in the city, with 8 A-rank swordsmen. She is certain the guild boss will pit their strongest members against them, but she is sure they will win if they take them on as a team. She suddenly notices that Arrol is beaten up, and she assumes they got into a fight, but Reiner explains that they are undergoing some special training. Lilia doesn't buy her story because it just looks like she is using Arrol to relieve stress. But Arrol suddenly gets back to his feet and announces that he is going out for lunch because he is hungry. A few days later, the guild competition day arrives and the trio heads to the Colosseum. Arrol isn't too impressed by the people lining up to take part in the competition. Lilia overhears some spectators choosing the Blackblade Guild to win the match against them, and she gets pissed. She starts to approach them so she can give them a piece of her mind, but Reiner stops her. Arrol is surprised to learn that people can bet on their matches. Lilia reveals that the odds of their match are 1 to 20 in favor of the Black Blade, which means that nobody expects them to win. However, she sees it as a grand opportunity to become a billionaire. She reveals that she took another loan with the guild house as collateral and bet everything on them to win their match against the Black Blade. Reiner isn't too happy with her plan because they will be in a worse situation if they lose, but Lilia points out that they will be in a bad situation if they lose. So it's better to go out with a blaze of glory. Georg, the boss of Blackblade, suddenly approaches her and mocks her for wasting her time trying to uphold her father's guild. Georg is curious because he heard that she recruited a classless swordsman. Lilia wonders if he only approached her to gloat, but Georg reveals that he only came over to cheer her on because he feels bad about the current state of her guild. He reveals that he did her a favor by using his influence to make sure their guilds were matched up against each other. He explains that he is allowing them to get back in the spotlight and get some serious paycheck if they somehow manage to defeat the A-rank swordsman he has chosen to face off against them. Georg begins to laugh at their ridiculous odds of pulling off a victory, but Lilia insists that they will win. Georg decides to indulge in her delusions and wishes her the best of luck as he walks away. Arrol and Reiner see through Georg's fake kindness, because it is obvious he is doing everything to eliminate their guild. Everyone enters the Colosseum and takes their seats, as the announcer declares the start of the tournament with the match between the Black Blade and Dragon Fang. Arrol, Reiner, and Lilia stand in the middle of the Colosseum grounds, as the Colosseum screen displays the names of the fighters from the Black Blade. Arrol notes that Georg isn't on the list, so he concludes that they are holding back against them, but Reiner clarifies that they are using a more aggressive lineup, because Georg isn't one of the 5 strongest swordsmen in the guild. Arrol is eager to get the battle started because he wants to pick up some new interesting skills from their opponents. Lilia warns him to take the match seriously because the fate of their guild rests on it, but Arrol points out that she is in no position to give him advice because she bet all their money on the match without consulting them first. The sister announces the first matchup will be between Geo and Arrol. Everyone is surprised that Arrol is classless. They write him off as a joke who has a death wish. Geo is pissed off because he finds it insulting that he is facing off against a classless loser despite being an A-rank adventurer. He would rather have fun with the ladies, but the match kicks off, and Geo strikes immediately. He uses a blink dash to close the distance, and thrusts his sword into Arrol. Lilia warns him to be more careful, but Reiner points out that he is unharmed. Arrel's shadow disintegrates, and Geo figures out he is using his shadow skill. He strikes at Arrel behind him, but it turns out to be a shadow. 3 arrows surround Geo, and he assumes one of them is the real one because it is impossible to create 3 shadow images. He tries to find the real one, but they begin attacking him. He fends off their attacks, but the real Arrol attacks him from behind. Geo can't believe what just happened to him as he loses consciousness. But Arrol reveals that he learned the skill from Farah, who can make up to 5 after images. The sister declares Arrol the winner, and the crowd erupts in a cheer. But they can't believe that Arrol is really a classless swordsman. Lilia and Reiner are impressed with Arrol's performance, but Arrol is more interested in getting back to training as quickly as possible so he can imitate Geo's thrust sword strike. He looks forward to the next matchup so he can pick up more skills. The next contender steps up and the match begins. The swordsman tries to attack Arrol, but he blocks his attacks easily. He counters with his twin blade strike to knock out the swordsman. The next contender steps up and feints with his dagger while attacking with a kick. Arrel uses his shadow skill to sneak behind him and knock him out with 1 strike. Lilia cheers Arrel on so he can take out the last 2 members of the Black Blade. Reiner scolds her for leaving everything to him, but she admits that Arrel is the only one among them who can take out the R-rank swordsman, so she is giving emotional support. Shield steps up as the next contender and the fight begins. He scolds Arrel for lying about his class, but Arrel insists that he wasn't lying. He attacks Shield, but his attack barely does any damage because of his high magic protection. He decides to wear it out with persistent attacks, but Shield scolds him for complaining when he shouldn't even be a match against him. Arrel reveals that he earned his place in that duel by putting in tremendous effort, but Shield insists that effort can't outweigh talent. He attacks Arrel with a sword feint and uses his shield bash, but Arrel sees through his feint and knocks the shield out of his hands. Now that Shield is exposed, Arrel is confident he can win the match. He imitates the kick used by one of the swordsmen he fought against, and Shield points out that he has seen that technique before. Arrel admits that he can pick up some skills after observing them once. He walks over to Shield's shield and picks it up. Arrel's arrogance pisses Shield off so much that he attacks him, but he parries his strike. Arrel uses his shadow skill and imitates Shield's shield bash technique to knock him down. The sister announces him as the winner, but the spectators begin to protest. They label Arrel as a fraud because they can't comprehend how a classless swordsman took down 4 A-rank swordsmen in a row in record time. The sister consoles the crowd and reveals that the tournament administrators have ordered Arrel's class ID to be publicly displayed so they can see his information for themselves. The sister consults with Arrel to confirm that he is fine with the decision, and he agrees. The sister displays Arrel's information on the Coliseum screens and announces that Arrel is a certified classless swordsman. This wins back the favor of the crowd for Ale, and they begin to cheer for him. Lilia scolds Reiner for withholding the information about Arrel's true strength because she would have taken a higher loan to bet on their victory. Reiner confesses that she didn't know he was strong enough to progress this far into the matchup without their help. Lilia reveals that she is going to start making preparations for a marriage certificate because she wants to tie Arrel down as her limitless gold factory. The sister announces that the last contender is Masamune, who is a master samurai. He takes the stage, and Ariel immediately notes that he possesses a katana instead of the common broadsword. Reiner and Lilia are surprised by Masamune's appearance because they have never heard of him. They realize he is their trump card and they hope Arrel can match his abilities. The sister announces the start of the battle and Masana gets into his sword stance. Arrel feels the threat from his stance, so he decides to keep his distance. Masana commends him for seeing through his plan of luring him in and using his ultimate skill to defeat him. Arrel begins to approach him and Masamune can't understand why he is making such a senseless decision despite hearing his plans. Arrel reveals that he has no choice but to move because they will remain in a stalemate otherwise. Ariel also reveals that he is curious about Masamune's ultimate skill, but Masamune warns him that his curiosity could be his downfall. Ariel keeps approaching him as he tries to come up with a plan. He considers using his shadow strikes, but he figures out that Masamune will see through it because he is quite perceptive. He stops at the edge of his sword range and concludes that he has to be faster than his strike. He steps into Masamune's range and he strikes, but Arrel disappears. Masamune is surprised because he is certain Arrel didn't use an afterimage, which means he was faster than his sword strike. Arrel appears behind him and commends him for being fast, but he points out that he was trained by someone faster. He uses Piercing Tempest to defeat him, and Lilia is surprised to see that he has mastered the Sword Princess technique. The sister announces Arrel as the winner, and he walks off the stage. Lilia and Reiner congratulate him on his victory, but Georg silently plots his revenge from the shadows. Late at night, Dragon Fang celebrates their victory with a toast. Lilia enjoys her drink, saying nothing beats celebrating after winning. Arrel notes in surprise she's old enough to drink. While Reiner holds juice and accepts her situation, Lilia moves closer to Arrel and boldly asks him to marry her. He refuses without hesitation. She teases him for being shy, but he insists he isn't. She continues, saying she can fulfill his desires, but Arrel replies he'd rather marry someone like Reiner. Lilia is shocked and Reiner blushes, flustered. Embarrassed, she snaps that he should have at least lied instead of rejecting Lilia so plainly. Arrol calmly asks why she thinks he's lying. Reiner stammers that people say she acts like a man since all she does is train. Arrol admits he once thought the same, making her sigh about lacking feminine charm, but Arrol disagrees. Reiner says she aims to be the strongest swordsman and has no time for femininity. Lilia smirks. Reiner doesn't know how to use her greatest weapon, so she's no competition. Lilia tries again, offering to help Arrol relax with a massage while patting his lap. Reiner blushes and calls her indecent, but Lilia pretends innocence. Arrol then says he'd rather get a massage from Reiner instead, stunning both girls. Later, Reiner spars with Arrol. Her attack, even with a sheathed sword, leaves him gasping. She jokes this feels like torture, but Arrol explains pushing his body to the brink is the only way to master guts. He needs a capable, trustworthy partner. Reiner feels flattered he trusts her so much. A man walks downstairs with Lilia, telling them to keep it down. He's Lilia's father. He asks Arrol if he's training from frustration after losing, but Lilia corrects him. They won against Blackblade. Her father seems unimpressed, assuming the enemy sent weak members. Lilia insists all opponents were a rank and Arrol defeated them alone. Her father looks at Arrol, covered in sweat and bruises, doubting he's that strong. Lilia adds they earned enough money to cover guild expenses thanks to Arda. Her father warns that bigger guilds will recruit him, leaving them behind. Lilia refuses to believe it and announces she and Arda will marry. Arda immediately denies it. Her father tells her to give up. Arrol speaks up, saying even though Lilia can be silly, she's better than people who give up without trying. He asks when her father will stop moping and act his age. He can still wield a sword with one arm. Her father snaps. He grabs Arrol by the collar, asking what he knows. A dual swordsman who can't wield both swords has nothing but useless skills. Arrol admits he's right. He has no class or special skills either. Her father shoves Ale away and walks off. Arrol comments that even with his injuries, Rod is incredibly strong and it's a waste to give up. Lilia feels thankful, believing Ale's words might inspire her father. Reiner agrees. Rod just needs to find his passion again. Arrol hopes Rod will teach him someday. Lilia suggests Arrol explore a dungeon to learn new skills. Arrol asks what a dungeon is, making Reiner sigh. She explains there's a massive dungeon beneath the city filled with traps and monsters. Arrol grows excited. Reiner agrees to join for combat experience before the Sword King Cup. When Arrol asks what that is, Reiner groans. It's a grand tournament to decide the strongest swordsman. Lilia brings out an entry form saying she assumed he'd want to participate. Arrol shocks them by tearing it in half. The paper is actually a marriage certificate. R puts Lilia in an arm lock as she yelps and apologizes. Meanwhile, two mysterious people watch through a magic orb. One asks where they're heading. The other answers the dungeon tomorrow. The first smirks. If an accident happens there, no one will suspect. A sinister laugh echoes. The next morning, Arrol sleeps peacefully. Lilia sneaks in, smiling mischievously. She brags that her casual outfit will make him unable to resist. She leans closer for a weak-up kiss. Arrol suddenly opens his eyes and asks what she's doing, startling her. Flustered, she tries playing it off, calling him hubby. She leans in again, but Arrol pushes her face away. She yelps and accuses him of cruelty. Arrol calls her a predator. Annoyed, Lilia argues she's throwing herself at him and calls him a dimwit. Arrol ties her hands to the bed frame and leaves. He knocks on Reiner's door and finds her asleep, mumbling about her father and asking for praise. Amused, Arrol pats her head, realizing she's a daddy's girl, despite her tough exterior. Lilia's voice echoes, yelling to be untied. Rod walks in and sees his daughter tied to Arrol's bed frame. Shocked, he starts arguing, while Arrol listens awkwardly. Arda, Lilia, and Reiner arrive at the underground dungeon. Arrol is surprised by how crowded it is. Reiner explains the Sword King Cup is approaching, and many adventurers are training. A long line waits for the teleportation seal. Lilia explains it lets people instantly travel to floors they've already visited. However, it only works for floors reached before. Lilia can go to the 12th floor, while Reiner can reach the 14th. Arrol assumes he can follow Reiner, but Lilia corrects him. The magic won't allow it until he physically reaches that floor. Lilia insists on taking Arrol herself, and tells Reiner to go alone. Before Reiner can argue, Lilia grabs Arrol's arm. Arrol stops her, saying Reiner should come too, and she gladly agrees. Inside, they encounter two living armor monsters. The creatures move on their own, clanking heavily. Arrol and Reiner draw swords. One charges at Arrol. He blocks its strike, but another attack comes from behind. Arrol jumps back, surprised at its speed despite heavy armor. He decapitates it, but even without a head, it continues moving. Reiner battles the second monster and explains, living armors are empty suits powered by dungeon magic. They feel no pain and have no weak spots. Arrol targets the legs, sending it crashing down. Reiner finishes her fight and warns the enemies will regenerate soon. Arrol realizes they're perfect for endless practice. Lilia steps in, pretending the fight was tough, though Arrol points out she didn't help. Curious, Arrol asks her class. She proudly says she's a fencer and offers to teach him. Arrol says his mother, the sword princess, is already a master fencer. Lilia is shocked but recovers, claiming she can teach him compassion. They walk away and hear screams asking for help. They notice an injured guy coming out and ask what just happened. The guy reveals he entered a new room for the first time and got hit by a bad trap. Lilia thinks that's common inside a dungeon, but Arrol is a bit confused. Brea wants to take the guy to the exit, but he refuses because his friends are still in the room. He begs the group to help them, which Reiner quickly agrees to. Lilia calls her out because that's a dumb decision without proper thought. Brea then realizes the guy is only covered in blood because his divine protection ran out, so he shouldn't be coming with them. However, Lilia explains that's the wrong approach, because they should be negotiating first. Her eyes shine as she explains they need to be compensated for helping someone. Everyone, including Arrol, is shocked because Lilia is a hypocrite. 1 minute ago, she promised to teach him compassion, and now she's become the opposite. Lilia doesn't back down and claims it's everyone for themselves inside the dungeon. So, you should pay a price if you ask for help. Despite the shock, the injured dude pulls out the 200 IQ move of inflating her ego. She gets excited because she is finally getting recognized, and the guy reveals he read the article talking trash about her guild. Lilia gets mad and decides to leave the guy behind, but they manage to reach an agreement, in exchange for him losing all his money. However, Arrol believes the situation is kind of sketchy. Lilia doesn't understand because the guy gave her real money. But Arrol says the guy is weird. He thinks there's too much blood on him, but Reiner tries to explain it's because his divine protection ran out. The girls ignore Arrol's worries and decide to follow the guy into the room. On their way, Arrol thinks this is getting weirder because he also lost as much blood as this guy before, but he couldn't even stand before receiving any type of healing. Yet, this guy is walking just fine. He knows this guy's injuries are fake, but decides to let everything play out because it could be fun. They finally reach the room entrance, and the guy activates the secret door. They look around but can't find anyone inside. They walk further in and notice a huge pool of blood. Lilia notices a gold coin next to the blood and decides to pick it up, but once she does, a magic circle activates. Arrol and Reiner realize this is a teleport trap, and the injured guy mocks Lilia, claiming she's just as greedy as the rumors say. He thinks his job is done, but the magic circle increases in size, shocking him because he's now in range. In the end, everyone gets teleported to another place, which Reiner believes to be lower than the 14th floor. Lilia wants the injured guy to explain what he just did, but they're startled when a light appears in front of them. The guy then explains he received orders to lead them to the trap so that they could never escape from it. Suddenly, a knight appears, and the guy reveals they're in the lowest floor, where the advanced level sword lie. Lilia is shocked because that sword class was supposed to be just a myth. Suddenly, Arrol pushes her head down a second before the knight releases an attack aimed at their necks. The girls don't understand what attack that is, but Arrol explains that's a slashing attack skill only use. The girls are shocked by its huge range, but they don't have time to play around. The knight teleports and focuses his attack on Arrol, pushing him against the wall. Arrol blocked the attack and thinks it was worth getting guts because he barely lost any divine protection. He tries to attack the knight, but it teleports away. Arrol confirms the knight's skills are of an advantage and thinks this is the perfect chance to test himself. Everyone is confused by his words, but Arrol simply dashes away and begins attacking. His speed and attacks shock everyone, including the knight, who is forced to focus on defending. But suddenly, the knight uses a skill to increase the pressure and force everyone to their knees. Arrol is the only one who's still standing because he already practiced this with his mother. He remembers when she was training him and complimented that he managed to still stand at that time. He told her he could drop to his knees at any moment, but his mother didn't care. She simply explained that once he used this skill, he should hit his opponent with the infinite break one. Arrol was shocked because that meant his mother would hit him with a high-speed chopping attack. He thinks that is too much because it would be impossible for him to block it since he can barely stand. But she doesn't care. She simply claims she will go easy on him, and despite his claims that she can't control her strength, she simply attacked, saying that she could maybe control it this time. Despite being harsh at that time, Arrol is glad she never went easy on him. He picks up a coin from the floor and throws it at the knight, forcing him to break his stance by cutting it in half. Arrol uses this chance to jump forward, claiming the knight made a mistake, thinking he couldn't move. In the next second, he unleashes his infinite break skill to defeat the knight. Lilia obviously tries to leech off him by calling him her future husband, but Arrol refuses. After the fight, Arrol drinks a mana potion, and Reiner asks how. Lilia is also confused because she has never despite living in that city for her whole life. Yet Tyr simply explains that's an easy answer. His mother is an actual. The girls think he's joking, and Reiner asks why his mother always claimed to be a sword princess. That's when Arrol reveals she simply doesn't like to get attention. Rey laughs it out and claims that she would never have challenged him if she'd. Arrol reveals he's glad she didn't know about it, because he really needed their fight to improve himself. Lilia can't stand this anymore and wants to find an exit when suddenly another light appears. Arrol gets excited because it could be a new enemy, but Lilia reveals it's the teleportation spell and they decide to leave. Meanwhile, in the city, Lilia's father is at the bar when he listens to a group bragging about making so much money by catching some idiots in a teleportation trap. The group feels bad because their other member also got caught by the trap, but they begin to laugh it out. Turns out they knew he would get caught, but never told him just to get a bigger share. One of the guys then mentions this is a crazy ending to the Dragon Fang Guild. Upon hearing this, Lilia's father asks to hear more about this, and they realize he was their old guild leader. He begins throwing a tantrum, but a guy named Georg stops him. Rod thinks Georg is behind this, and the guy reveals that his guild members saw Lilia's party entering a dangerous hidden room in the dungeon. Rod tries to grab him while shouting that not only did he take his arm, but he's also trying to take his daughter away. He falls to his knees while calling her name, when suddenly Lilia and the group enter the bar. Georg thinks this is impossible, but Lilia simply claims they almost died because of him. Georg breaks the thrall and ends up in the bar, saintish. However, they manage to come back alive. Georg claims they aren't strong enough to defeat a sword, but Arrol claims he was a decent opponent. Lilia also reveals the other guy confessed that Georg was the person behind it. Georg leaves because he knows nothing can be done about what he did, and gets home. He's angry because he thought he would finally become the strongest adventurer now that Arl's mother and Rod were out of the picture, but he's now competing with a classless kid that can defeat superclasses. Suddenly, a dark fog appears, and Georg notices a sword behind him, emanating aura, and claiming it will grant his one charges at Arrol. Back at the Dragon Fang Guild, Lilia learns that the preliminary brackets for the Sword King tournament have been posted. But the problem is she and Arrol are placed in the same group, meaning she'll have to face him. Even if she doesn't, it's crystal clear to her that Arrol is the only one who is going to pass from that group. Arrol overhears her frowning, but he ignores her completely and asks Reiner instead about the tournament's details. Reiner explains that the Sword King tournament is so famous that every year thousands of people from around the country come to participate. That's why there's a preliminary bracket to cut down the number of players before the knockout rounds. Lilia once again frowns, stating her dreams of winning the tourney are squashed again. Arrol this time rubs salt in her wounds, telling her that a loser at her level should feel proud that she somehow managed to get selected for the preliminaries in the first place. He then continues to ignore her once again and asks Reiner about the group she's in. Reiner checks the list but doesn't know any of her opponents. Regardless, she's determined to pass the preliminaries. Lilia also tries to act motivated and wants to practice in the dungeon, but neither Reiner nor Arrol wants to tag along with her. Lilia's father, Rod, enters the room and warns Lilia to be careful after hearing her plan, as he's certain that Georg is going to set up another trap. Lilia promises she'll be fine and heads off alone. Seeing his daughter being so fearless makes Rod want to pull his act together once again, so he decides to quit drinking and try to replenish his status as a master swordsman. Later at the tournament grounds, the preliminaries begin, and Lilia, as expected, loses her other battles miserably without even facing Arrol. He approaches her, and she instantly realizes that he just wants to mock her with insults. In any case, she tells him to be careful as there are people with some very unique skills in this tournament. She points at a red-haired swordsman, telling him to be wary of her, but Arrol doesn't care as he's totally aware of how strong he is. But Lilia still thinks he should put his guard up, mentioning that the red-haired girl is from the magic swordsman class and is able to use both magic spells and apply them to her sword. This might actually be troublesome, so Arrol thanks Lilia for the heads up. Shortly after, he faces the red-haired girl, who immediately taunts him for being classless. Arrol doesn't care, though, and tells the announcer to begin their battle. As the duel begins, the red-haired girl starts spamming fireball spells at Arrol, but he dodges all of the incoming attacks easily. He takes a careless stance and points out how she isn't very skilled at either magic or swordsmanship. A jack of all trades can never be a master of anything, and Arrol is a master swordsman, so he isn't worried about losing at all. The girl refuses to be humiliated like that. So, she activates her signature skill, Flame Sword, and then begins swinging her sword, which acts like a fire whip. These movements would make it difficult for a regular swordsman to defend himself. However, Arrol easily counters her move, swinging his blade so hard that the airwaves cause the flame on the girl's sword to extinguish. He then uses Blink Dash, getting behind her in the blink of an eye, and knocks her out with one clean hit from the back of his sword. By defeating her, he becomes the winner of his group and passes the preliminaries with flying colors. The main event happens a couple of days later, and Lilia is about to leave when she notices that her dad is pretending to sleep on the couch. She tries emotionally blackmailing her dad to come with her to watch Arl's battle, but he refuses. She suspects that her father is scared of running into Georg there, but her dad makes it clear that this is not the case. He explains that the reason he's upset is because the day before he tried practicing with a sword again, and swinging it made him realize that his skills are so rusty. A man like him, who was once at the level of a sword king, cannot win a tournament held for youngsters. Lilia cannot believe how much ego this man has and tries to tell him that there are many people in the world who cannot even get into the main tournament, and by many people she means herself. Obviously, Rod realizes that, so for his daughter's sake, he agrees to go with her. As they are walking through the streets, Lilia tells Rod that she knows he definitely would have gone to the tournament in secret to watch both Arrol and Reiner's fights, as he cares deeply for all of his guild members. Rod smiles and pats his daughter's head, feeling glad that she knows him so well. The main tournament is about to start, and everyone is tense. You can rightly assume that even Reiner, despite how confident she looks on good days, is scared. She sits in fear and shakes her legs. Arrol sees her from a distance and comes to her. Since she is absent-minded, she doesn't notice that he is nearby, so it's as if he bumped into her. She screams and asks him not to scare her. He rightly assumes something is wrong, as he hasn't seen her that tense before. Well, not everyone can be a classless genius like Arrol. Normal people have reasons to be scared about competitions like that. It's the main tournament and the biggest stage she has ever been on in her life. Also, for that tournament, you don't know who you might be paired against, and that is a worry. He reassures her that she will be fine, and she comments that she thought about the idea of being paired against him and how it would feel. Soon, the competition starts, and the first person to fight is Georg. Shockingly, his opponent is none other than Arrol. When Arrol's name is called, Reiner gets emotional and holds his hands. He stops and asks what is wrong, but she claims it was a mistake. She wishes him the best in the match and sends him off. He arrives on the field to fight Georg, and as you can guess, Lilia cheers him on from afar, urging him to beat the pride out of Georg. However, by the time Georg comes out, the atmosphere changes. He has a horn on his forehead. His two side teeth pierce outside his lips. He looks just like a demon. Sorry, mistake. He is a demon. Everyone wonders why his appearance suddenly changed. Thankfully, Rod recognizes the demon that has possessed Georg. Rod knows how deadly that demon and its sword are. So he screams to Arrol, warning him not to fight or go near the sword. When the demon hears Rod scream, he gets an overflow of emotions because it means someone in that generation recognizes him. He thought he had been long forgotten, and this just makes him excited. Georg speaks as if he doesn't recognize Arrol, and this shocks Lilia, so she looks to her father for answers. Rod informs her that that sword is the one used by the legendary Sword King to slay the ancient demon. The sword has been said to be filled with grudges, which is why it was locked away. However, it seems Georg has requested the help of the sword and has been possessed by the demon. The demon figures everyone is now talking about him. Soon, people start commenting about how the demon had destroyed an entire city in the blink of an eye and how powerful it is. As expected, everyone starts running out of the hall for safety. This only feels like fun for the demon who has been bored for a long while. He introduces himself as Durgala, bragging that he will show them why he is the legendary demon. He hits the sword on the ground and creates a shield. He locks everyone inside the arena so no one can escape and laughs erratically. To his shock, there is someone in front of him ready to fight. That person is Arrol. He calls Arrol a fool and asks if he wants to die. But Arrol is of the opinion that the only reason he is there is because he can defeat him. Arrol reminds him that he was beaten by the Sword King of Legend, and that just means he isn't invincible. Durgala claims that he has Georg's memory, and he knows that the Sword King is long gone, so there is no one that can defeat him now. Well, he is wrong. The Sword King isn't gone, but that is all Arrol can tell him at that point. Arrol also tells him that he has the skills to defeat him. You can't doubt him, since his mother is the Sword King, and he had gotten his skills from her. Without wasting time, he goes to fight. He uses the King's Step to attack Durgala. This shocks Durgala because that is a skill exclusive to the Sword King alone. Since he knows the classless boy can't be the Sword King, he reminds Arrol that he is in the body of the Sword Emperor and has Georg's skills. He jumps and attacks Arrol so much that Arrol bounces hard on the ground. He assumes that he has won, but Arrol stands up. Thankfully, he had gotten the gut skill from all the painful training he had been doing with Reiner. Since Durgala means business, Arrol also gets serious. He uses his infinite break to attack Durgala several times until he lands his final hit, and Durgala falls hard on the floor. He goes nearer and people caution him to stop, but he reveals that since Durgala doesn't have any special resilience, he can't stand up again. Everyone shouts in joy that the fearful time is over, and Reiner walks to Arrol to check on him. Unknown to them, Durgala isn't Georg himself, but the sword. Although Georg is physically weak, the sword isn't. So Durgala considers how he will survive. All he has to do is find someone else to possess in that place and find a good way to run. He looks around for a person with a physique good enough for him, and he finds Rod. The sword disappears from Georg's body and flies toward Rod. Arrol protects Reiner as the sword flies, and Rod tries to protect Lilia. Unfortunately, the sword possesses him, and Durgala holds Lilia as a hostage. Arrol comments that he didn't know the sword was the demon, and now that he knows, he will destroy the sword. Durgala claims he will kill Lilia if Arrol comes nearer, but Arrol doesn't care. So Durgala is forced to remind Arrol that Lilia is his future wife and he won't want her to die. Arrol laughs. He doesn't even like her that much. Unable to believe the truth, Durgala reveals that he saw in Rod's memory that Lilia informed him about her relationship with Arrol. Well, Durgala doesn't know that Lilia was just daydreaming. Arrol reveals he doesn't care about Lilia, and he could just kill Lilia and Durgala together. This hurts Lilia, but her safety is the first priority here. Arrol informs her to stay calm, as Durgala can't do her any harm. To their shock, he is right. Rod has been fighting Durgala's spirit, which is why Rod hasn't turned into a demon. Rod takes control of his body and fights back, claiming that if Durgala had approached him some days ago with the opportunity of becoming a demon, he would have taken it. But now his spirit is strong. He has met Arrol, and now he believes that anyone can capture the life and future they want, so he will fight. He successfully gets himself free from Durgala's grasp and throws the sword at Arrol, who crushes it immediately. That is the final end of Durgala, and everyone in the city is excited. In my opinion, the tournament should end, and Arrol should be declared the winner, since that was the greatest fight in that tournament. What do you think?
Right after the Sword Cup, Rod decides to train the newbies that excitedly join the guild after Arrol's win. He doesn't go easy on them at all, and after beating them up, he tells them that they're relying way too much on their skills, but have no defense whatsoever. Most of the newbies run away in fear, while Deal hides from Rod behind a wall, saying that he didn't know training would be this rough. Lilia finds him and scolds him for slacking off over there, and reminds him that they let him join the guild because he said he'd work hard to mend his ways. But he's not putting in any effort. Deal asks her to cut him a break, because Rod is being downright diabolical with his training. Lilia smiles and recognizes that her father has definitely become a more passionate trainer since getting back on his feet, and that's all thanks to Arrol. When she mentions Arrol, Deal asks her where he is, and Lilia awkwardly tells him that Arrol has actually dropped out of the guild. Her nervous laugh quickly turns into a cry as she wonders why Arrol left her behind. Because they were supposed to get married. She's sad that not even Reiner is in the guild anymore because she went chasing after Arrol right away. In another scene, we see Arrol on a carriage heading for his hometown, and the driver tells him that the champion of the Sword Cup has never just disappeared right after their victory like this. Arrol tells him that there was nothing left for him to see or do there, so he had no reason to stick around. Now, he wants to go back home to test his skills because he might be able to beat his mother now. The driver can't help but laugh at that, saying that even the great winner of the Sword Cup is afraid of his mother. Later that day, we see Farah at the garden enjoying the smell of roses, while she says that she should make a bouquet to celebrate his return. Arrol, who's standing right behind her, realizes that he's been caught, even though he was trying to be stealthy. His mother looks at him with a smile and mentions that she can tell he's gotten some experience under his belt because she didn't pick up on his presence until a few moments ago. Arrol tells her that he won the Sword Cup, and Farah is proud to know he did the same as her back in the day. Before he can say anything else, Farah suddenly vanishes and appears right in front of him in less than a second, putting a rose up to his face. Arrol is taken off guard and realizes that he'd be done for if that flower was a sword. He recognizes that she saw right through what he wanted to do, and Farah confirms it, reminding him that she's his mother. However, she knows that they'd destroy the house if they sparred here. So, she invites him to go to the training grounds behind the mountain. Of course, Arrol accepts, and once they reach the training grounds, his mother tells him that she's excited to see how strong he's become. She disappears without a warning, but Arrol quickly blocks the attack with his sword. Farah mentions that she really hopes he doesn't get the impression that she's not taking this seriously. Arrol sees that she used Divine Step into a direct attack, and he wouldn't have been able to block it if he hadn't seen her pull the same move in the front yard. He immediately steps back to gain some distance, knowing that he has to go on the offensive if he wants to win. Farah immediately blocks his attacks, noticing that he used a mix of the Divine Air Slice and Twin Blade Slice, which is very interesting. Arrol asks her which skill she used to defend against that, but his mother tells him that she simply swung her sword. He's a little shocked to know that wasn't a skill, but Farah clarifies that she learned to fight without relying on skills from him. Arrol recognizes that she's as strong as he thought, and immediately launches at her again. In the meantime, the people in the village get alarmed when they notice the ruckus behind the mountain, and they immediately assume it's because of a monster. Arrol and Farah continue clashing swords, even in the air, and he uses the Divine Swordsman's aerial leap to reach her. Farah uses Divine Presence to paralyze him, but Arrol tells her that it won't work against him anymore. He resists the Divine Presence, so Farah decides to pull out all the stops and fight with her sword. They immediately run towards each other and use Infinite Break at the same time as their last move, ending the fight in a second. Meanwhile, Reiner arrives in the village and notices that the place looks deserted. She assumes everybody took off because of whatever caused that awful noise earlier, though it seems to have stopped now. After a while, Reiner finally finds Arrol's home, but she's greeted by a young girl named Mira, who she assumes is Arrol's younger sister. She introduces herself and says that she's here to see Arrol, but the little girl immediately gets defensive and tells her that his brother isn't interested in cows like her. Reiner is clearly hurt by her comment, but tries to stop her from slamming the door shut in her face. Just then, Farah and Arrol come back from their duel, and he's clearly surprised to see Reiner at the door. Mira quickly jumps into Arrol's arms, and Reiner confirms that she's his little sister. The little girl asks them why they look so beat up, and Arrol tells her that they had a match. Farah informs her that she lost, because Arrol is very strong now, though he clarifies that it all came down to skill against skill, and he barely won because of the difference in physical strength. Reiner tells him that it's still amazing, because his mother is actually a sword. Arrol reminds her that his mother is not in peak form, like back in her guild days. So it's not a win he wants to celebrate. Farah quickly complains about his comment and tells him that it's not like she's an old lady. That aside, she asks him when he's going to introduce her to the lovely young lady at the door, referring to Reiner. Everyone heads inside to have some tea, and Farah tells Arrol that she was going to ask about his adventure in the City of Swords. However, now she would rather hear about how he and Reiner met first, because she loves a good romance story. Mira is quick to complain, saying that she doesn't want to waste time listening to that cow. Reiner still doesn't understand why the little girl keeps calling her a cow, so she starts wondering if she's really that overweight. Arrol decides to finally introduce her, saying that they live together in the city. That information makes Farah feel excited, though Mira doesn't like the implication at all. Reiner immediately gets flustered, so she nervously explains that they only live together as members of the same guild. Arrol then asks her what she came here for, and Reiner tells him that he couldn't just abandon the guild like that. He clarifies that he made sure to leave behind a letter of resignation. But she tells him that's not the problem, because normally someone would at least say goodbye when leaving. Arrol explains that he already saw all the sword skills that could be useful, so he figured it was time to move on. Reiner just sighs in resignation, and Farah tells her that it's great that she came this far out to the sticks, because she was worried about Arrol. Reiner informs her that she's from this village too, and Arrol isn't her only reason for being here, because she actually wanted to ask her if she'd take her on as a disciple. Just then, a man bursts into the house to warn Farah that there's an emergency, because something cataclysmic happened on the west side of the mountain not too long ago. Both Farah and Arrol immediately know that it's their fault, and the man explains that many trees were down, and even the ground was split apart. So, he was hoping she would join the village security on their investigation. Farah knows that the match she had against her son is what caused such damage. So, she tells him that there's no need for an investigation because they actually just slayed a monster over there. The man quickly buys that excuse, and Arrol is impressed that she managed to explain her way out of it. The man named Evans tells her that he'll have to tell all the evacuees to come back in that case. He immediately notices Reiner's presence, and Farah realizes that she's Evans's daughter. Evans asks her why she's here, and Farah informs him that Reiner wants her to teach her all about how to be a good wife. Evans's eyes instantly get teary at that, as he realizes that his daughter is already getting to be that age. Reiner panics, and clarifies that she never said that, and she only asked to be her disciple because she wants to learn how to fight, and wants to become a better swordsman. Farah tells her that she can teach her all about how to be both a good swordsman and a good wife in that case. Evans apparently loves that idea, and he explains that back when his wife passed away, he was really worried about Reiner's future. He swore to raise her right, but he could only teach her swordsmanship, so he'd be overjoyed if she could also learn about housekeeping. Farah asks him to leave it all to her, because she'll Reiner into a proper lady. Evans thanks her with tears in his eyes, and then decides to return to his duties. So Reiner feels like she doesn't even get a say in this. In the meantime, Arrol decides to go see his father, who's currently doing some magic research. He explains that he's on the verge of a breakthrough, and it's going to be his ultimate technique of sorts. Leaving that aside, Leon mentions that he heard Mira shouting her head off, so he wants to know if he brought back a cute girlfriend or something. Arrol clarifies that she's more beautiful than cute, and his father is surprised that he really brought someone. Despite his father's excitement, Arrol brushes it off and tells him that he beat his mother in a sword fight today. Leon congratulates him, and Arrol tells him that he now wants him to teach him magic. His father quickly asks him to give it up, saying that it's impossible, but Arrol doesn't look like he's going to give up so easily. Meanwhile, Farah is teaching Reiner how to chop vegetables into large pieces, but it's a little obvious that the Redhead has never done such a thing. Both Farah and Mira get alarmed when they see the way Reiner holds the knife, and the little girl tries to warn her that's not how she should do it. Despite the warnings, feeling fully determined, Reiner tries to chop the vegetables with the knife, but ends up destroying the whole table with her strength. She quickly apologizes for the mess, and Mira cries because she also broke her favorite mug. Farah asks her if she never got a chance to cook at the guild, and Reiner admits that she always lets somebody else handle it. Knowing this, Farah says that she'll have to teach her everything about housekeeping from the bottom up. In that case, though, Reiner would like to just stick to swordsmanship. Farah tells her that she has to refine mind, body, and skill to become the best swordsman, and she can't do that without being diligent in how she handles everyday chores. She also admits that she's quite pleased to have another daughter around the house, but Reiner asks her if she doesn't already have a daughter who's older than Arrol. Farah confirms that, but explains that Arrol said that she was going to make a world that's easier for a classless like Arrol to live in, and then simply left to make that true. Reiner recognizes that there are a lot of problems with discrimination against classless people, though she's not really sure Astaire should worry about a guy who's stronger than most people. Later that day, Arrol helps his father to fix the table Reiner broke, but after he's done, he asks him if he couldn't just just fix it with magic. Leon laughs and explains that Farah says she likes it when he smells like sawdust. He then understands that Arrol simply wanted to see some magic, so he decides to use magic to fix Mira's favorite mug. While they put away the tools, Leon once again tells him that he should give up on learning magic, because not every person has the mana needed to cast it. It's a special ability, like having a magic battery, so it's totally unheard of for someone without any mana or skills to be able to cast spells. Arrol tells him that that doesn't mean it's impossible, and Leon admits that it's true, and he knows he already set a new precedent by winning Cup without having a class. However, these old swords he left are proof that he's a hard worker, and some things in life are just unachievable, even with hard work. Arrol is a little surprised that they didn't throw them away, and Leon explains that these swords are like a monument to all his efforts, so it wouldn't sit right with him to throw them or repair them. Even so, trying to cast magic without the mana is like being an armless swordsman who can't hold a blade and has to learn by watching moves while blindfolded, so no amount of hard work will help. Arrol admits that he has a point, but he asks him how he's so sure that he doesn't have mana. Leon tells him that if he did, he would have gotten the magician class through a blessing and started casting spells a long time ago. Arrol still assures him that he has mana, and it's something he just knows. He explains that it happened when he was getting beat up by Reiner every day back in the guild. To restore his divine protection after he got hurt, he needed to drink holy water. But Lilia offered him some medicine that was laying around the warehouse and asked him to use it for recovery first. Reiner was reluctant at first and asked her what that medicine was, but Lilia simply said that she had no idea, assuming that it'd be old holy water or something, though it could also be poison. However, Arrol thought that drinking poison might help him toughen up his internal organs, so he drank the medicine without thinking. Leon scolds him for drinking suspicious stuff, but Arrol tells him that the problem is that it wasn't actually poison. It felt like he recovered something when he drank it, but it wasn't the divine protection from Leon. Quickly understands that it's possible that it was mana he recovered, and if that's the case, then he could teach him magic. Arrol notices how happy he is about that, and his father confesses that he's always been jealous of Farah getting to teach him swordsmanship. He asks him if he can still feel the sensation of that mana he recovered inside of him, wanting to know if he can make it move throughout his body. Arrol closes his eyes to focus, and Leon asks him to try to release it, and to imagine condensing it to a single point in the palm of his hand. Arrol decides to give it a shot, and after a while, a tiny flash of light appears in his hand. Leon gets very excited because that's unmistakable proof that he has mana, but Arrol faints right after that, which means he's used it all up with just that. His father quickly catches him and tells him that he may be a champion when it comes to swords, but in terms of mana, he's not even at the level of a trainee yet. He'll need a much larger pool of mana than he currently has to start using magic without passing out. Arrol asks him how he can increase it, and Leon tells him it's the same as practicing with his sword. It's just like how they train their bodies to increase muscle mass, so he has to use his mana over and over again to improve. Arrol is glad to hear it's really that simple, but he completely passes out after that. Leon then confesses that he never really wanted to tell him to give up because he's always dug in his heels and proved that nothing is impossible with effort. He quickly starts tearing up, saying that he's truly the best son he could have asked for. Once Arrol finally recovers, he goes to a store and buys all of the mana potions available. He trains his magic non-stop every day, and after 6 months, Leon is impressed to see his progress. After all, now he has the same amount of mana as a spellcaster right after their blessing. Arrol assumes that means he'll be able to invoke magic now, but Leon tells him there's still one tricky issue left to deal with. He shows him a text called a magiscript and explains that in order to use magic, he needs to know spells that are written magiscript. With the right skill, the spells that he needs to cast magic can pop into his mind almost automatically. Since he doesn't have skills, it means he has to form and recite the spell in his head every time. It might be impossible for him to get help from the academy in the City of Magic. Leon explains that they teach all the basics of magic there, but he'll have to train enough to reach the level needed for entry first. Arrol is clearly interested in that, so he asks his father to tell him everything about it. They have dinner in family soon after that, and Farah mentions that Reiner has gotten so much better, both in the kitchen and with the sword. Arrol notices that his mother has really taken a liking to Reiner, and Leon says that he likes her too, because she's valiant and beautiful. Reiner is happy to see Arrol's family gets along so well and mentions that maybe hers would be the same way if her mother was still alive. Lion tells Farah that he'd do anything for her and then uses a spell to cast a heart that transforms into glowing birds. Everyone is amazed to see the beautiful magic. Hey everyone, if you're new here, if this is your first time watching us, let us know in the comments what country you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe. After 3 years of intense housewife training, Reiner nervously presents Farah with a cup of tea. As she watches, Farah brings the cup to her mouth before praising her cooking. Relieved, Reiner thanks Farah for all her guidance these years. But suddenly, they hear Mira sobbing loudly as she comes into the kitchen. Crying, Mira reveals that Arrol left the house with a letter in his bed. Reiner takes the letter and finds out that Arrol left for the City of Magic with no other explanation. While Mira cries because her brother left to get get milk, Reiner feels guilty, since she has once done the same thing. Suddenly, Fa hugs her, warning her, "Don't leave them like your cold son." Reiner reassures her she won't dip, and Fa wonders why her children turned out like this. Soon the culprit comes into the room, lazily rubbing his eyes. Farah sighs, thinking it'll all be fine as long as her kids stay safe. Meanwhile, Arrol is in a carriage riding to the City of Magic. He asks the driver how long it will take, and learns that they've got 3 more days to go. The driver asks Arrol why he's always jumping from one big city to another, and the passengers get interested in him as well. The kids ask if Arrol is headed to the School of Magic, just like them, so Arrol nods. A boy named Kaido wonders why Arrol is applying at such an old age, and his friend Kufa assumes he's just trying the entrance exam again after failing it many times. She tells Kaido not to make Arrol feel bad, but Kaido tells her that she just roasted him for failing anyway. While the two of them start arguing, the other girl, Colette, tries to calm them down. In their rage, they ignore her completely, and Arrol notes that all 3 of them are wizards. Seeing their young age, he realizes that the kids must have just received their wizard class. Then Kaido tells Arrol that he uses red magic, then curiously asks what type of magic Arrol uses. Thinking about his skill, Arrol remembers learning from his father that magic is divided into colors, based on the elements a wizard uses. However, because Arrol didn't receive a magic class for any specific color, Leo told him to try using all of the magic elements. Recalling his experience, Arrol tells the kids, "I'm a jack of all trades, since I'm classless." Kufa laughs, since she thinks there's no way a classless can attend a magic school. Angered by his prank, Kaido tells Arrol to stop lying, but he tells him it's the truth. Finally, Arrol shows them his class card, which proves that he's classless. Seeing this, Kaido starts mocking Arrol for trying to learn magic without a class. Arrol sighs, having heard such taunts 1,000,000,000 times already. Suddenly, a creature roars loudly from the forest, startling the carriage horses. The kids get worried about the noise, so Arrol explains that it's the sound of a troll king. Terrified of the powerful beast, Kaido tells the rider to rush them out of the forest, but he tells him that the horses are too scared to move. Colette thinks that they're all going to die, but Kufa reminds her the trolls are just slow creatures. Kaido agrees, thinking that they can avoid its attacks to fight back. With her friend's encouragement, Colette nods and agrees to fight. Although the kids are ready to fight, they still gulp nervously as the troll king approaches. The hideous monster shows its face, and Colette quickly clings to Kufa. Kaido reminds her to be brave, saying that it's not too big to handle. However, as the troll gets closer, suddenly a massive club knocks it into space. As the kids watch in horror, the real troll king finally walks out, 10 times larger than the previous one. Finally, all of the young magicians give up any hope of survival. The girls wonder if they can try doing anything with magic, but Kaido quietly steps out of the carriage, trembling with fear. He pulls out his wand, determined to fight to the death. After channeling all of his mana into the wand, Kaido unleashes a powerful fireball at the troll king. As the blast explodes in the monster's face, the girls think it actually worked. However, it only roars in anger, ready to destroy the pesky kids. The girls realize that Kaido only made the troll even angrier, and he screams that he has already used up all his mana. The troll king approaches the carriage to attack, but suddenly, a giant explosion spell vaporizes the monster. The kids wonder who defeated it. Meanwhile, Arrol pops out of the carriage, thinking that he went overboard with his mana. Kaido wonders if he was the one who cast the spell, and Kufa points out that explosion is a supreme-level red magic. Shocked, Kaido also recalls that only an advanced archmage can use an explosion. Then Arrol walks over to the horses and uses his healing magic. The horses stand back up, and the carriage driver thanks him. Arrol asks the driver to show his own skills next time, but he thinks it's too big a hassle. Nearby, Kaido apologizes to Arrol for his earlier rudeness, thinking he's a senior magic teacher, and says that from now on, he'll be his student. Arrol tries telling him he's just a classless mage, but the kids think he's hiding his true identity from them. Seeing them glaze him so hard, Arrol thinks he should have just used a sword to avoid suspicion. After everyone calms down, the carriage moves out again. 3 days later, they arrive at a floating island city. Pointing towards it, Kaido tells Arrol that it's the City of Magic. Surprised by the architecture, Arrol gets off the carriage with the kids. Kaido excitedly explains that the bridge connecting the island to the forest is also held up through magic. Watching their friend follow Arrol like a dog, Kufa wonders why Kaido adores him so much. She thinks that he might have used hypnosis magic to control Kaido. Hearing their doubts, Arrol feels annoyed that he causes suspicions everywhere he goes. As they enter the city, Kaido asks Arrol if he'll apply for the Red Magic School with him. This surprises Arrol, so Kaido explains that all schools are divided based on the color of their magic. Since every element has a different magical language for its spell chant, all the schools have different teachers and syllabi. Kufa reveals that she'll go to the blue school, while Colette feels nervous about applying to the green school. Realizing that he needs to take an entrance exam, Arrol prays that he doesn't get rejected, just like he did back in the City of Swords. After parting ways with the girls, Arrol and Kaido head over to the Red School of Magic. As Arrol hands over his entrance application, the receptionist asks if he entered all his information accurately. He wonders if she's asking him to check his class, thinking that she'll reject him because he's classless. However, she easily approves his application, which surprises Arrol. He asks why the school doesn't reject classless people, so the receptionist tells him they give a fair chance to everyone. With their application approved, Arrol walks to the examination area with Kaido. After a young man casts a fireball spell, the examiner calls another applicant. He walks up and proudly reveals he's already an advanced mage, shocking everyone with his talent. Arrol wonders if an advanced class is that big of a deal, so Kaido tells him they're basically guaranteed to have a successful career. Arrol nods, recalling that his father just ended up in the countryside with his exceptional talent. Kaido thinks that the boy is too arrogant, but Arrol reminds him that he isn't any better. Soon, the boy burns the test dummy with an impressive eruption spell, spell, leaving the audience stunned. Seeing everyone fawn over him, Kaido starts bragging about his master, which annoys the boy. Arrol shuts Kaido's big mouth, making the boy think Arrol is afraid of him. While the boy boasts about melting the metal dummy, Arrol tells him to look at it again. As he turns around, he finds the dummy intact, much to his shock. The examiner explains that it's made out of powerful mithril, so ordinary attacks can't melt it. Once again, Kaido starts taunting the young mage for his overconfidence, but Arrol shuts him up before leaving to attempt his own test. Standing in front of the durable mithril dummy, Arrol thinks it's a good chance to go all out and test his abilities. As he charges his spell, the examiner gets surprised. Finally, Arrol casts the eruption spell, which just looks like a thin needle pouring on the dummy. Seeing the spell's weak power, the boy starts laughing at Kaido for his boasting. However, the dummy suddenly melts into a puddle, stunning the young man. Since the eruption spell isn't strong enough to melt mithril, the boy accuses Arrol of cheating. Arrol explains that he condensed the flame into a smaller area to boost the intensity of its heat, which allowed him to melt the mithril. The boy can't believe that Arrol is able to modify his magic. Arrol starts walking away, and Kaido wonders where he's heading. Arrol tells him that he plans to take the entrance exams at the other magic schools too. He soon arrives at the water school, where Kufa has just passed her test. She's surprised to see him there, so he tells her he'll attempt the exam just like her. Soon, it's Arrol's turn to start, and he creates some tough icicle spikes that shatter the mithril dummy to bits. After destroying all of the applicants' hopes and dreams, he turns around to target the green school. There, Arrol finds Colette nervously huddled in the corner and asks why she isn't taking her exam. She tells him she's too nervous to even register, saying that she needs moral support to try anything. Arrol tells her she needs to take the exam on her own, so she asks how he handles his nerves when he's anxious. Confused, he replies that he has never felt ner. Arrol asks her why a person can feel nervous, so she tells him that it comes from the fear of failure. After thinking about her words, Arrol asks Colette if she has never failed before. She nods, saying that she fails a lot, which is why she wants to avoid it. Saying that he has also failed many times, Arrol wonders why she's scared of it. Colette doesn't understand his words, so he reminds her that even if a person fails sometimes, their life doesn't just end. His simple words stun Colette, and she finally believes that even if she fails, she can just try again later. After calming down, she thanks Arrol for his help. He smiles and asks her how the Green School's exam works. Colette explains that in order to pass, applicants must make a windmill spin with their magic. With this in mind, Arrol registers with her and enters the examination area. There, he focuses his mind and unleashes a tornado spell at a windmill. As the rough winds shred the poor windmill to pieces, Arrol realizes it wasn't made out of mithril. The examiner tells Arrol he has passed and asks Colette to begin her test. She feels even more nervous taking the exam after Arrol's insane show of skill, but he reminds her to calm down. Finally, Colette prepares to take her own test and passes it. While Arrol leaves the venue, he heads over to the rest of the magic schools, passing all the exams with flying colors. In the end, Arrol heads over to the Black School of Magic, surprised by its ruined building. While walking down the halls, he notices a strange creature in a box. Suddenly, a woman comes over to him asking, "Have you seen her pet, Gooey?" Arrol points to the box, so she quickly takes a strange creature out of it. Happy to have her pet, she proudly brags to Arrol that it's a chimera she made inside her lab. Suddenly, a skeleton welcomes Arrol to her school, but he slashes off her head by instinct. Arrol wonders if she's an undead monster, but the skeleton introduces herself as a normal person called Latelia. Arrol wonders how she's walking around as a skeleton and asks how he can take the Black School's exam. Latelia explains that since nobody wants to learn black magic, they don't even take an exam. Although Arrol is weirded out by their casual attitude, he decides to join anyway. Afterward, he heads back to the city where Kaido and the girls call out to him. The kids rush to ask which school he'll attend, then immediately start arguing over who gets to claim him. Arrol sighs and reveals that he plans to attend all of the schools at the same time. Kaido thinks attending 3 schools at once is already impossible, but Arrol then reveals that he'll actually be attending all 6 magic schools in the city. As he counts down from red and blue to white, yellow, and black, the kids feel their world shattered by Arrol's insane ambitions.
What if one student was so powerful he decided to attend not 1, not 2, but all 6 schools of magic at the same time? Get ready for a mind-blowing story of ambition, crazy challenges, and magic like you've never seen before. Before we jump in, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing our global community. Later, Arrol walks across the school grounds when he hears familiar voices calling out to him. Kaido and the others run toward him, saying they've been looking everywhere. They excitedly ask which school he plans to join, each one insisting he should choose their own. Arrol surprises them all by saying he isn't joining just one. He plans to attend all 6 schools of magic at once. His friends stare at him in disbelief, completely shocked by his decision. Arrol shows off his IDs from the 6 schools he got accepted into, and Kufa can't believe he pulled it off. She wonders how the other schools didn't learn he was already admitted to any of them. Arrol reveals that student information isn't shared between schools. He looks through the schedules for each school and is confident he can attend all of them together if he improvises. However, he suddenly has second thoughts when he notices the course schedules overlap. Kaido reminds him that he warned against applying for for 6 different schools at the same time because he can't attend them all. Arrol points out that attendance is only 20% of the grade required to pass. Since the majority of the grade is based on exams, he's certain he'll get through as long as he scores well on them. Colette points out he won't pass his exams well without attending classes because the most recent information, which tends to be covered during exams, isn't in the textbook. Arrol asks to borrow their notes to solve the issue, and they agree. But Kufa wonders what he'll do about the other 3 schools where he can't borrow notes. Arrol reveals he doesn't have to worry about the School of Black Magic because they don't take classes there. Since the School of Black Magic is a self-study school, that leaves him with a focus on the yellow and white schools. Kaido is pleased with his analysis and suggests they attend the Red Magic School together on their first day. Kufa takes Colette aside and asks her how Arrol plans to manage attending 2 schools at the same time because she heard attending just one properly is nearly impossible. Colette admits Arrol is very mysterious and doesn't do things like an average person. Kaido calls out to them and gathers everyone around so they can attend their first class together. They enter the class, and Kaido is so eager for his first day that he can't wait to take his seat. Arrol directs him to the back, but Royce spots them before they can take their seats. He recognizes them immediately, but they ignore him and walk past. Royce screams at them because he's pissed off they're ignoring him. Kaido finally recognizes him as the sore loser from the exams, but Royce denies losing. He accuses Arrol of being a fraud because there's no way an established mage like him would lose to a mere spellcaster playing around with party tricks. Arrol reveals he's not a spellcaster, and Royce now understands why he lost. He assumes Arrol is a mage and commends him for achieving his rank at such a young age despite being a new student. Arrol denies being a mage, and Royce begins to panic because the only other explanation is that Arrol is a Supreme Class Archmage. Arrol also denies being an Archmage, and Royce is at a loss for words because he doesn't understand what's going on anymore. The tutor enters the class and asks them to settle down before the class starts. Royce immediately raises his hand because he wants to ask the tutor a question. The tutor doesn't recognize him, so he introduces himself. He asks the tutor for Arrol's class because he's the only person besides him who used eruption at their exam. The tutor reveals Arrol is classless, and Arrol agrees with him, but Royce is too stunned to make sense of it. Kaido sympathizes with him because he was once ignorant like him. He assures him he'll get used to it. They walk to their seat, and the tutor announces the start of the lesson. He orders them to open their textbooks and begin scribbling some magiscripts on the board. Kaido has a hard time following the lesson because there are too many magiscripts to commit to memory. The magiscripts are difficult enough on their own, but adding spelling and vocabulary to it makes learning a nightmare. Meanwhile, Arrol is surprised they're starting with something so basic at the academy. He wonders why they're still studying it from scratch, since the people who are blessed as spellcasters already have magiscripts engraved in their minds. The tutor reveals there's still a considerable number of them who haven't totally memorized magiscript or its grammar. He explains the only reason they can use magic without knowing magic is because of their natural skill. However, he reveals they need complete knowledge of magiscripts to use magic more smoothly. It'll help them determine the most suitable skills for casting spells and help them manage their mana more efficiently. This will reduce the physical strain on their body, and Arrol finally understands the tutor's emphasis. He also explains that at a higher level, they'll gain the ability to rearrange spells to cast more complex forms of magic. Kaido wonders if that was what Arrol did during their exams, and Arrol admits he didn't know it was an advanced technique. He explains his dad always mixed spells casually like they were nothing. After class, he heads over to the Green School of Magic and meets up with Colette. He informs her the classes in the other school have nothing new to offer, but admits the Green School is interesting, especially because of the practical training they're about to do for flight magic. He admits he's never done anything like that before. Colette is surprised because there's no way he mastered advanced class magic without learning something as basic as flying. Arrol blames his weird upbringing for that because his father was too scared of heights to teach him anything related to it. The tutor walks in and orders them to spread out before they start practicing flight magic. She asks them to imagine being swept upward by a gentle current of air. She begins to levitate and adds they can spread their hands and imagine themselves as a bird to help them master the technique. Arrol wonders what to do because the tutor's technique will only work if the user has the spell in their mind. There's nothing Arrol can do to memorize the spell because he can't think of what he doesn't know. Colette begins to levitate beside him, and she's overjoyed to have mastered the technique. Arrol tries to observe her technique so he can replicate it, but she loses her balance and falls. The other students laugh at her, and Arrol is almost forced to console her, but she brushes it off and gets back to her feet. She reveals she isn't scared of screwing up anymore, and she returns to practicing the technique. Arrol is impressed by how quickly Colette mastered the technique and began to levitate. He's certain she'll fully master flying if she keeps practicing, which motivates him to practice. He figures out the best way to replicate the tutor's explanation is to cast a tornado spell at his feet. The spell sends him flying, but the upward force runs out, and Arrol hits the ground hard. Colette offers him a hand, and he takes it gratefully. A student approaches them and mocks them for being a sight for sore eyes. He offers to show them how it's done, and shows off his mastery of the flying technique. He flies around for a bit and returns to the ground. He reveals he's been studying flight magic since he became a spellcaster, which is why he's never lost a race. Arrol doesn't know what a race is, so Colette explains it's a sport that uses flight magic, and people compete around a set course to see who reaches the finish line first. Arrol is interested in the sport and agrees to participate, but the student reminds him it's a flight sport. He advises him to actually learn how to fly first before indicating interest in the sport. Arrol boasts he'll master flying in a very short time. The student asks the tutor for the date of the next flight race, and she announces it takes place in 2 months. The student advises Arrol to forget about participating in the next race because it takes at least 6 months to master flying. He gives him a year of practice and challenges him to face him in the flight race next year, then he flies off. But Arrol already has an idea of a spell combination he can use to replicate flying. Colette assumes he's planning for for next year's race, but he reveals he's partaking in the next race because he'll master the flight technique within 2 months. Some days later, Colette, Kufa, and Kaido walk around the Green Magic School corridors. Kaido wonders why Colette dragged them out there at night when they're supposed to be sleeping, and she reveals she forgot something. She asks them to tag along because she doesn't want to get lost. Kaido understands her reason, but points out they didn't need him because they could have gone together. Colette reveals Kufa insisted they bring him along for extra protection. Kufa also explains they should move as a large group because there are rumors of ghosts appearing on the school grounds after dark. Kaido begins to panic, and Kufa mocks him for being the same scared little boy who was too afraid to enter the bathroom by himself. Kaido condemns her for bringing up stories about his past. He calls her a hypocrite because she has the gall to call him a scaredy cat when she's been hiding behind Colette since they entered the school. Kufa denies his accusation because she was only making sure Colette's back wasn't exposed. They begin to quarrel, and Colette asks them to settle down because their noise could attract the ghost. They turn to her and see the ghost coming through the window behind her. They warn her to back away from the window, but she doesn't react in time. The ghost opens the window and shuts Colette's mouth so she doesn't scream for help. Kaido threatens to burn the ghost if it doesn't release Colette, but it releases her and calms them down. Kaido recognizes his voice, and Arrol takes off his hood to reveal his face. He wonders what they're doing on the school grounds, but they throw the question back at him. He reveals he's been practicing his flight magic around the school since he decided to take part in the race. Kufa realizes he's the reason for the ghost rumors in school, but Kaido is concerned that Arrol is exhausting himself without getting enough sleep. Arrol assures him he gets enough rest and points out he was sleeping a few seconds ago. Kaido doesn't understand what he means, so he explains he trained himself to practice while sleeping. But Kufa insists that kind of sleep isn't restful. Kaido acknowledges he would never become as strong as Arrol, but he vows to start practicing on his own just like him. Arrol advises him to get rid of his fear of ghosts first, but Kaido denies being scared of them. Kufa and Colette make silent promises to practice on their own as well, so they can become better at their spellcasting. They leave the school and say their goodbyes, but Arrol wonders what to do next since he's wide awake. He visits Latalia and asks for permission to enter the library. She wonders what kind of book he's looking for, and he reveals he isn't looking for a particular book. Instead, he's reading through all the books he doesn't have at home because they may contain useful information that will come in handy in the future. Latalia offers him a job at the library because, unlike others, he doesn't get sick at the sight of black magic books. The next day at the Red Magic School, the tutor writes out lines of spells on the board, but Arrol points out a mistake he made on one line. Kaido commends him for spotting it, and Arrol reveals he had to memorize all the spells because they don't naturally come to mind. Kaido wonders how he memorized everything, and Arrol reveals he created shorthand versions of the longer ones to help him remember them better. He declares he can shorten the tutor's spell lines by 1/3, and the tutor overhears this. He invites him to write his spell on the board, and Arrol confidently walks up to the board. The tutor analyzes his spell and admits it's theoretically accurate, but points out there are no safeguards, which means the spell will explode if it fails. Arrol points out he doesn't need to safeguard against an explosion, because he has his divine protection. The tutor insists the divine protection won't shield him from pain, but Arrol insists he can handle it as long as he doesn't die. The tutor realizes Arrol has complete mastery of spells, so he offers him a chance to take a promotional exam to the 2nd grade. Royce demands an opportunity to take the test as well, and the tutor agrees. He takes them out to an arena and announces the start of the promotional exam for both of them. Arrol doesn't understand what they're supposed to do, so the tutor explains that once they enter their lane, the gate at the other end of the wall will open, and a monster will emerge. Their objective is to defeat the monster from a distance with their magic. He warns them to be careful because the monsters will attack if they get too close. He wonders who will go first, so Royce volunteers. He goes down into the lane, and the tutor gives the signal to open the gate. A Minotaur emerges and immediately charges at Royce. Royce tries to use his eruption spell on the Minotaur, but it's too fast for the spell to make contact. Arrol notices his spell is stronger than the last time he used it during the exam, and the tutor acknowledges it's a result of his classwork. Royce tries to use the eruption spell multiple times on the Minotaur, but none of them make contact. The tutor points out eruption isn't the best spell to use on a moving target, and Royce has an even lesser chance because he's panicking. The Minotaur reaches Royce and swings its arm to strike, but it suddenly disappears. Royce is relieved, but the tutor assures him the school will never allow any harm to come to their students. He steps out of the lane, and the tutor informs him he failed. He commends him for coming so far because students typically study for 2 years before attempting the test. Royce realizes the tutor wanted him to understand how much he has to learn before he can confidently call himself a mage. He promises to keep studying magic humbly until he achieves that level. Tutor Bacchus orders Arrol to enter his lane and informs him they've prepared a monster of the same species for him. He orders the gate to be raised, but the monster that emerges looks larger and darker than the previous one. The caretaker rushes over to inform Tutor Bacchus they mixed up a superior minotaur into the exam course. The superior minotaur charges at Arrol, and he tries to use 2 fire spears to immobilize it, but it jumps over his spells easily. Tutor Bacchus advises Arrol to step out of the lane because he's scared the superior minotaur will break through the barrier that's supposed to protect students from harm. But Arrol refuses because he's certain he can beat it. His fire spears double back and hit the minotaur from behind, immobilizing it. Tutor Bacchus realizes Arrol gave the spears a homing effect. Arrol uses his eruption spell to defeat the minotaur. He comes out of the lane and Tutor Bacchus announces he passed. He invites him to the 2nd grade class the next day. Kaido spreads the news to Kufa and Colette, but Arrol isn't satisfied. He wants to take the promotion exams at the other schools too because he's confident he'll ace them all.
Hello friends, get ready for an absolute powerhouse of an episode. Don't forget to drop a comment below and let us know which country you are tuning in from. Let's dive right into the action. Arrol wants to get promoted in his schools, and in reality he plans to get promoted in all 6 schools, leaving him completely speechless back at home. As Reiner tries to cook on her own, she gets scared by the hot utensils. Farah tells her she can take a break, but Reiner decides to push through. After carefully bringing a fish above the hot oil, she drops it safely, but still gets startled by the splash. Meanwhile, Mira tells Reiner to hurry it up, but Farah tells her to wait patiently. She teaches the young girl that all good things take time, just like how Arrol became strong after countless hours of hard training. However, Mira thinks that Reiner can't compare to Arrol, and she agrees. Reiner knows that he went through much harder training than she ever did, and wonders what he's doing right now in the Blue Magic Academy. Arrol asks his teacher, Hennel, to take a promotion exam. She tells him to wait until the year's end, but Arrol asks her if she can recommend him in an exceptional case. Hennel reminds him that only special students can get exceptions, so he offers to show her his water magic. She sighs and offers to promote him if he performs well in his classes. However, Arrol tells her he doesn't want to take the pointless classes in the first place, which angers her. As Hennel feels insulted by Arrol's comment, he clarifies that her classes aren't actually pointless, but they're too low level for someone with his skill. His arrogant comments enrage Hennel even more, and she finally tells him to back up his talk and display his true skills to begin his exam. She takes him to a secluded yard for sparring. Watching Arrol confront his own teacher, Kufa wonders if he can defeat a person close to being an archmage. After Arrol gets done with his warm-up, Hennel tells him they're not allowed to use physical attacks in the duel. He agrees to the rules and takes a few steps back, but she reminds him that he could get hurt in the fight. Seeing him accept the rules so easily, Hennel wonders if he truly thinks he can beat her. Arrol tells her that while he can't be 100% sure, he thinks he's got a good chance against her. His confidence enrages Hennel, so she begins the duel with a powerful ice tornado spell. As the harsh winds freeze Arrol into an ice block, Kufa gets worried for him. Hennel thinks she has already won, so she tells Kufa to learn from the match he has just witnessed. Suddenly, Arrol breaks the ice from inside, revealing the ice barrier skill he used to protect himself. Hennel is finally surprised by his strength, so he summons a dozen ice spikes to attack her. She calms down, thinking it's only a basic skill, but Arrol suddenly creates another batch of icicles. Soon he shoots his icicles to attack Hennel, but she creates her own ice edges to defend against them. Seeing her defend his attack, Arrol thinks Hennel is truly qualified to be a teacher. Meanwhile, Hennel recalls that Arrol also used the same attack in his entrance exam, so she thinks it's his specialty skill. She tells Arrol that ice spells are her specialty too, so he challenges her to an ice edge duel. After Arrol creates even more icicles than before, Hennel easily matches his attack. But this time, Arrol also forms 100 icicles to her left, right, and directly behind her, trapping her inside a circle of ice. Since changing an icicle's direction requires an incredibly complex spell modification, Hennel realizes she's completely outmatched. Giving her no time to react, Arrol launches all the ice edges towards her, so she blocks them with a barrier. As she blocks all of the attack, Hennel is surprised that Arrol's strikes aren't losing any power, despite using so much mana. However, she notes that the ice edges are only freezing around her barrier, which is increasing its strength even more. She thinks that once Arrol runs out of mana, it'll be her turn to attack. However, Arrol tells her he's about to finish the match, which shocks her. She reminds him that not a single one of his icicles pierced her shield, so Arrol tells her he didn't want that either. Then he launches a glacial lance from above, making Hennel wonder how he has so much mana left. As the lance shoots towards her, Hennel tries to block it with another ice shield, but the lance's sharp edge pierces through the shield and defeats her. After he wins the duel, he leaves the school and meets up with the kids. They learn that Hennel directly promoted him to the class without any other examination, since he defeated her. Since his goal is to master all the different types of magic, Arrol moves on to getting promoted in the Green School. As he talks to his wind teacher with Colette, she tells him that the Green School doesn't make exceptions like other schools. Hearing her teacher's firm refusal, Colette tries to drag Arrol away. Then the teacher looks into the school's policy book and finds out that the headmaster can directly promote students if they want to. Arrol thinks he's got a chance, but she tells him there's no way she'll let him bother the headmaster for his personal request. The teacher warns Arrol that he'll be expelled for disturbing the headmaster, so he finally calms down. It's the last thing he wants. Colette wonders why Arrol is in such a hurry to get promoted, so he tells her he's trying to catch up to a person he admires. Then he asks his teacher if he can directly show his skills to prove his strength, but she keeps refusing him. Finally, Colette thinks of another way Arrol can prove himself. She recalls that after the school's flying race event, the headmaster personally presents the prize to the first place winner. Arrol thinks it's a great chance to directly meet the headmaster, but his teacher reminds him that the race is a fierce competition with over 300 participants. Since Arrol is confident he can win, he soon goes out with the kids to participate in the race. While the kids cheer for Arrol, the arrogant wind user from earlier named Skake walks up to him. Since Arrol doesn't remember who he is, the boy's precious ego gets hurt. He introduces himself to Arrol and claims he'll become the best wind user ever, but Arrol tells him he's going to win the race. Skake remembers that Arrol couldn't even fly 2 months ago, so the boy wonders how he plans to win the full race. Arrol tells him he has practiced a lot since then, but Skake thinks there is no way he could improve himself so much in such a short amount of time. Soon, the event announcer, Grid, starts the event. He explains that the race will start from their school, looping around the entire Magic City before returning. Then he points to the headmaster, who is attending as a special guest, and tells the audience to cheer for him. As the headmaster tells everyone to stay safe, Grid then introduces the commentator, Instructor Dummel. The appearance of the handsome instructor sends all the girls into an uproar, so Kaido gets jealous that he's getting all the attention. With all the preparations complete, the participants get in line to begin the race. Soon Grieg starts the race, and all the mages fly up. Unfortunately, many inexperienced mages collide with each other from the very start, leaving the skilled mages to actually compete in the race. As Grieg comments on the match, suddenly a student loses control of his magic and crashes into the audience. While the kid lies in a mess of his own bones, Dummel points out that he made the same mistake last year. Meanwhile, a girl named Dione is leading the race within the top 15, and Dummel notices a few new competitors among them as he looks at Skake and Arrol. Skake wonders how Arrol is keeping up with the fast speed. Arrol tells him that the top competitors are actually going slow right now, since they need to preserve stamina for the rest of the long race. Skake is shocked that Arrol considers this high speed so slow, and tries to cover it up. In that moment, Arrol notices a sharp turn coming up from the school gate's narrow path, and focuses on perfectly executing it. As Grid reaches the gate, he riles the audience to watch if the top competitors can make it through the turn. The first 2 of them are unable to turn around in time, so they go straight into the city's lake behind them. Skake makes sure to turn perfectly, and he makes it out after an intense effort. Skake thinks he has finally left Arrol behind, but he easily comes behind him at a relaxed pace. Soon, Grid follows the students as they fly around the city, noticing that the race is already halfway done. Seeing Dione leading the competition, Dum thinks she'll win since she has won the last 3 races as well. However, Skake and Arrol keep pace with her, so Grid thinks they could see an exciting upset. Meanwhile, Dione is surprised that first-grade students are keeping up with her speed, so she decides to get serious. She increases her speed and pulls even farther ahead. Skake tries his best to catch up as well. Unfortunately, he soon realizes that his body has run out of mana, so he admits defeat. Although Skake falls behind, Dummel praises him for his exceptional performance as a first-year student. Then Grid focuses his attention on Arrol, who is still flying next to Dione. Seeing that he's keeping up, Dione speeds up even more. Arrol knows that he can't go any faster than his current speed, so he decides to use a secret skill to boost it. At first, he sees a skill to with bursts of air under his boots. He catches up to Dione with the extra speed. Even Grid gets surprised by Arrol's performance, so Dummel explains that Arrol is condensing thick masses of air around his feet and kicking them off to propel himself forward. Grid is surprised, since he didn't think such a spell was even possible. While Dummel points out that air bursts only give a small boost in speed, Arrol has sped up dramatically with his kicks, so Grid wonders how he's doing it. To explain Arrol's incredible speed, Dum assumes his legs must be unbelievably strong, since only supreme-class swordsmen can pull something like that off. Hearing Dum's commentary, Arrol feels impressed that he figured it out. In reality, he is using Soar, which is a swordsman's movement skill. As the final participants race towards the end, Grid wonders which of them is going to win. However, Dione thinks things won't be so simple, since they have to make another sharp turn to enter the school gate. At the student's current speed, such an abrupt turn would be almost impossible to pull off for them. Dione also notes that she has to slow down for the turn, and waits for Arrol to slow down so she can gain some distance over him. However, he refuses to slow down even as they reach the gate, so Dione is forced to protect herself and remain behind. Grid praises Arrol for taking the lead, but he thinks there's no way he can make the turn. Somehow, Arrol proves him wrong by punching the air in front of him to knock his body back and reduce his speed. With the assistance of his punches, he easily goes through the gate and crosses the finish line, winning the very first race he's ever entered. After Arrol wins, Dione congratulates him on the victory. While Dione feels determined to try again next year, Skake slowly pulls up behind them to finish in third. Afterward, the headmaster congratulates Arrol and presents him with a certificate and medal for his victory. After accepting the awards, Arrol asks the headmaster to promote him, since he just proved his incredible abilities. The headmaster agrees to promote him to 2nd grade and asks where he learned his amazing magic. Arrol tells him he just learned it from the school, but he doesn't believe he learned such an advanced flight magic from their basic class. Then the headmaster leaves after wishing him good luck. Arrol feels happy that he has gotten his promotions in the red, blue, and green schools, and looks forward to tackling the remaining 3 next. That was episode 9. Subscribe so you don't miss the next part, and watch the next video now.
The episode begins with Arrol heading to the Yellow Magic Institute to try the promotion exam, but to his disappointment, he finds out that the registration period for the assembly has passed. Without officially registering, he can't get the promotion, and he can't believe he missed the deadline. When he asks when the next assembly will be taking place, he is told that he will have to wait a few months. But that's way too long for him. He asks the woman if there's any way she can make an exception and let him join the current assembly, since he went through all the trouble of creating a new golem for it. But there are strict rules about this kind of thing. However, just then, a man happens to be passing by. When he hears Arrol mention that he created a new type of golem, he becomes interested and offers to register as his assistant, which will allow him to participate in the current assembly. Arrol eagerly accepts, since it's the perfect solution to his problem. The scene shifts to the reception desk. When he turns back to the receptionist, she tells Arrol she can't believe he agreed to be Rogwell's assistant. He asks if there's something wrong with Rogwell. She explains that it's not like he's a bad person, but he is the best instructor when it comes to golem controlling, and he often goes all out against his students, crushing them completely. He's kind of a jerk about it too, which is why no one wanted to be his assistant for this assembly. But even though that sounds like it could be a hassle to deal with, as long as being Rogwell's assistant allows him to participate in the current assembly, Arrol is fine with it. The day of the assembly arrives soon after, and after many brilliant presentations, it is finally Rogwell and Arrol's turn to make a presentation. Rogwell announces that he will be demonstrating the might of his golems today. All the students in the crowd know that means he plans to crush another student in a mock battle. They feel bad for the poor sucker who got roped into being his assistant. Rogwell summons his battle golems and tells Arrol to do the same, so he obliges and calls for Alpha to come out. Just then, the battle golem Arrol created walks out into the arena, and everyone is surprised since they have never seen a golem made out of metal before. Rogwell is especially skeptical since metal is too heavy to be controlled by earth magic, so he assumes Arrol must have hidden someone in there. When he takes the golem's head off, he discovers that the body really is empty and the metal just happens to be really light. Arrol mentions that he alchemized the metal himself. Rogwell takes that to mean he sacrificed sturdiness to make it light enough to control. And if that's the case, then it will never hold out against his earth golems. He orders the first golem to charge at Alpha, expecting Alpha to fall apart after a single punch. But to his surprise, not only did Alpha block the punch, but in the aftermath, the arm of Rogwell's golem completely crumbles to dust, leaving everyone in utter shock. Rogwell can't believe Alpha was really able to withstand a hit from his golem, but losing an arm is no big deal because with his massive mana pool, he can regenerate and reinforce his golems as much as he wants. So he orders all of them to jump Arrol's golem at the same time. Arrol realizes it will be difficult to counter 4 golems at once, so he decides to use the special feature he built into Alpha and pulls 2 swords out of her back. Rogwell can see what he is trying to do, but he thinks it's a dumb move since golems are nowhere near flexible enough to use swords effectively in combat. However, in the next moment, Alpha dashes past all his golems, slicing them to pieces in an instant. With this, Arrol is officially the winner of this mock battle. Rogwell doesn't understand how this could possibly happen. Arrol helps him back to his feet and explains that he intentionally designed the golem with lightweight alchemized metal and flexible joints to make it possible for it to perform complex movement without difficulty. Combining that with Arrol's existing knowledge of swordsmanship, it was easy to have it perform sword techniques. Rogwell admits that Arrol's golem is without a doubt better than his own. Arrol asks if that means he is allowed to take the promotion exam now, but Rogwell tells him that instructors' assistants aren't actually considered for early promotion. However, if Arrol is willing to join his research team in the meantime, then Rogwell promises to put in a good word for him with the headmaster. Arrol is fine with that as long as it gets him promoted to the next grade. The scene shifts as Arrol heads to the White School and asks to take the promotion exam. The promotion process here is a lot more straightforward, so an exam is arranged for Arrol, and he is introduced to Cade, who will be in charge of his test. Arrol notices that Cade seems to be blind, so he asks her if she needs any help getting around, but as much as she appreciates the concern, she tells him she is perfectly fine. She may not be able to see, but she can sense the magic in the world around her. She can even tell the personality of someone from their magic as well. However, when she looks at Arrol, not only does he seem to have a bottomless reserve of mana, but he also has several different types of magic swirling in his body at once. This is the first time she has seen anything like it. She leads him to the test site, an underground dungeon which is infested by undead monsters, and Cade warns him to be careful since the undead will attack him on sight. But to her surprise, when Arrol runs into a group of undead, he just begins spamming Holy Light to get rid of them. He then continues walking further into the dungeon, but Cade tells him to wait because the test was actually just to defeat the undead close to the entrance, so he has already passed. Besides, she says if he keeps spamming spells like that, he's going to run out of magic sooner or later. But Arrol tells tells her he has only used around 1% of his total magic. Either way, Cade says they should start heading back to the entrance, but along the way, Arrol notices something hiding in the corner over there, so he fires a ray of holy light at it. It turns out that there was an undead hiding there. Cade realizes this must be a high-level one if it was able to hide its presence, but Arrol doesn't really care, so he cuts the undead off mid-speech and hits it with a holy cross spell to get rid of it. He then asks Cade to hurry up so they can get started on the paperwork for his promotion, but Cade still has a lot to process here because she can't believe what Arrol just did. From what she could sense, that creature back there was an undead wight, and it was an advanced monster. Arrol admits that it did seem a little different since it was able to talk, but he didn't think about it much. Cade then asks where Arrol learned to use the Holy Cross spell, since it's a high-level spell that only expert exorcists gifted with incredible talent are able to use. But Arrol always just thought of it as a slightly more powerful holy ray, so he doesn't see what's so special about it. On the other hand, the last one left is the Black Magic Institute, but as it turns out, there isn't a promotion exam here. Arrol decides to spend his time doing some reading instead. Latalia eventually shows up, and he asks her why there's no promotion exam here. She explains that there used to be one before, but that system kind of fell apart since there aren't many students attending the Black Institute in the first place. Ariel admits that there are barely any students in here as he looks around the room. But then he notices the big room over there, and he has been curious about it for a while now. So he asks Latalia what it's for. She explains that the room is for students to test out their magic. While the other institutes are able to freely test their magic outdoors, dark magic tends to be a little more dangerous. So she had a reinforced magic room built so her students can try out the spells they learned. If that's the case, then Arrol decides to head in there to try out a few of the more complicated spells he read in these books. Once he's inside the room, as he is flipping through the books, he realizes that there's one here that he has never seen before. He opens the book and all of a sudden, a burst of mana escapes from it. Arrol can tell that the mana was pretty ominous, but this room is magically reinforced, so it shouldn't have been able to get outside. He looks around to see where it went. That's when he spots someone floating up in the air. That thing doesn't seem like a human. So Arrol asks if it's a demon, and the demon confirms it. It says it has been locked away in that book for years now, and none of the black mages here have been clueless enough to open it without checking what it was first. He says he owes Arrol a lot of thanks for his help, but if he's gonna get back to the demon world, then he's gonna need a lot of human flesh and blood as a catalyst. So he intends to kill Arrol here and now. However, Arrol doesn't intend to go down so easily. He shrugs off the demon's attack and prepares to cast an explosion spell at it. But to his surprise, it doesn't work. The demon laughs and tells Arrol that he already set up an anti-magic barrier in here, so no spells can be used. But that's not gonna stop Arrol. He charges at the demon, who assumes he must be out of his mind because there's no way a mage would be capable of fighting hand-to-hand. But before he could even finish his sentence, Arrol had already sliced its head off with his wand. The demon can't believe what just happened, but it reattaches its head and comes to the conclusion that Arrol must be a magic swordsman. However, even if that's the case, it still thinks there's no way Arrol can beat it because it has the blessing of immortality. So no matter how much Arrol hits him, he won't die. That certainly makes dealing with the demon troublesome. But Arrol recalls that demons use mana to maintain their physical forms, and even with immortality, taking damage over and over is bound to drain the demon's mana reserves. So he decides to just spam attack him until he gives up. At first, the demon tells Arrol his attacks are pointless, but eventually he notices that his body is shrinking, and his tone suddenly changes as he now realizes he isn't as invincible as he thought he was. After a few hours of being beaten by Arrol, the demon has now been reduced to action figure size, and he is begging to have mercy on him because if he shrinks any smaller than this, he might actually disappear altogether. Arrol decides that he has tormented the demon enough for one day, so he agrees to let it go, but not before putting a seal of servitude in its chest. The demon immediately begins protesting because it doesn't want to serve a lowly human, but the seal is already active and it inflicts intense pain every time the demon tries to rebel against Arrol, so he has no choice but to obey him. The scene shifts to 6 months later. The headmasters of all 6 schools are having a meeting to discuss the new budget for the upcoming year, but the headmaster of the Black Institute, Blag, gets up in a rage because he doesn't think it's fair that his budget is being cut by 60% since he won't be able to do any proper research with an amount like that. However, the representative tells Blag that his institute has failed to produce any meaningful results that contribute to the Magic City, so it's natural that his budget is being cut. All the other headmasters start making fun of Blag and call him a weirdo for dedicating so much time to black magic. The headmaster of the White Institute even tries to convince the city representative to consider banning black magic altogether, but the rep says he has no intention of doing that. He's simply here so they can proceed with budget allocation. So he asks if there are any more objections, discuss, but everyone seems to be in agreement. So he says, the budget will be finalized following the results of the Magic tournament. All the headmasters get up to leave, but Blag is still frozen in place because he can't believe his institute's budget is being cut by so much. The rep tells him that glaring isn't going to solve his problem, and if he really wants to increase his institute's budget, then he needs to prove the value of black magic during the Magic tournament. In fact, if the Black Institute manages to win, he promises not to cut the Black Institute's budget at all. But that's only if the Magic Institute can win. Meanwhile, that same day, Arrel and his friends are walking through the streets, and he wonders why everyone is putting up so many decorations. Kufa can't believe Arrel hasn't heard of the festival yet, when it's one of the biggest events held in the Magic City. Ariel never really paid much attention to festivities like this, but he has heard of the Institute Tournament, which is the festival's main event. In fact, all the headmasters have asked him to participate in the rookie segment, but he hasn't decided which school he wants to represent yet, so he will be meeting with them tomorrow morning to discuss it. That night, in a desperate attempt to secure victory for himself in the tournament, Blag spends a lot of time creating a magic circle that connects to the demon realm, and from it, he summons a high-level demon known as Gluttony. He intends to use it to prove how useful black magic is, but suddenly the slime betrays him and swallows him whole. This was the end of episode 10. Subscribe to not miss the next.
Hey guys, before we jump in, let us know in the comments which country you're watching this anime from. A couple of days pass, and Arrol wakes up fresh from a dream, replaying everything he's been through since arriving at the Magical Academy. He confesses to Maddie that he still hasn't decided which school he's going to represent in the tournament. Maddie warns him that he can't stall forever. He needs to make a decision, and fast. Back at the academy, the headmasters from the 6 schools are gathered, getting ready to reveal their champions. Since this tournament is the ultimate showdown for the best first-year students, the trash talk starts immediately. Each headmaster is bragging, convinced that their school is going to bag the first-place trophy. However, the mood shifts when they notice the headmaster of the Dark Magic School is a no-show. To be fair, nobody really understands that school anyway. To this day, it's a mystery who the students are, who the faculty is, or if they even teach anything at all. Just as they start worrying about the schedule, Arrol strolls through the gate, announcing he's ready for the meeting. Suddenly, every single teacher pipes up, claiming that Arrol is the champion representing their school. The faculty is completely shocked and confused because every headmaster was convinced Arrol belonged to them. But before they can untangle the mess, a massive explosion from the city shakes everyone to their core. Arrol instantly realizes something is wrong and starts worrying about his friend's safety. Over at the main arena, Call, Kaido, and Kufa are helping set up. When Kufa spots something looming past the walls, they turn around and are confused to see a giant slime monster snatching up a bunch of goblins. At first, Kaido thinks it might be a monster controlled by the Dark School to clean up the arena, but confusion turns to horror when the slime just inhales the goblins and tries to force its way inside. Kaido screams a warning, and total chaos breaks out as every student on the ground makes a run for the school. Realizing people are in danger, Arrol takes to the sky to scout the situation, with the Wind School master flying right beside him while the other teachers rush the grounds. Students are scrambling everywhere to escape certain death, but that hot-headed fire kid decides he's strong enough to handle it. He stands his ground and unloads attack after attack on the slime. To his horror, his strikes don't even scratch the beast, and it keeps charging right at him. He would have been toast if Dione from the Wind School hadn't swooped in like a falcon to save his butt, telling him to stand down if he wants to stay alive. Totally defeated and humiliated in front of the crowd, the brat apologizes to her, promising never to pull a stunt like that again. Meanwhile, Kufa, Call, and Kaido are sprinting for the exit when Call trips over a rock and hits the ground. Kaido and Kufa stop immediately to help her up, but Kaido realizes with a sinking feeling that the monster is way too close for them to just run away now. Kufa immediately whips out her wand and tries using an ice wall spell, blocking the slime's path. For the moment, they think that they have bought some important time for themselves, but at the very next moment, the slime effortlessly breaks through the wall, continuing his path of destruction towards them. Kaido decides to try his luck as well, and uses a modified attack that Arrow taught him, but even that turns out to be of no use, as the monster eats it up like nothing. Call is beyond scared at this point, but suddenly she remembers Arrol telling her to have faith in herself and fight till the end. Drawing inspiration from that, she stands back on her shaky feet, forcing herself to face her fears, and uses her strongest tornado attack on the monster. To her surprise, the monster doesn't even budge from its place, and at that point, Call smiles at her own weakness, claiming that she is glad that she at least fought till the very end without worrying about messing things up. They all stand there, utterly defeated, ready to face their death. But as the slime shoots out a bunch of its tentacles forward, none reach the group as Arrol jumps in between and slashes them to shreds, saving their lives. He turns back at them and smiles, claiming that they did very well, but from here, He will deal with it. The remaining professors also arrive at the scene like a bunch of Power Rangers, and the Lightmaster tells the kids to run off to the city hall while they deal with this monstrosity. Arrol asks whether he should stay and fight, but the Flame Master tells him that he should return as well, not worrying about them, as all the masters at the academy are supreme class in their magical affinity. The Blue School professor tells Arrol that it's the duty of the teachers to protect the kids from any harm, and that's what they intend to do. The master from the Yellow School claims that the beast seems to have made out of black magic, and wonders whether the professor of the Dark School was involved in this. The Red professor claims that this monster might be resistant to magic, as the kids tried but failed making a dent at its surface. The Blue professor tells him that at the end of the day, those were very lowered spells, used by a bunch of first-year students, and their magic should definitely be enough to deal with this ugly beast. The Blue professor uses her Perafrost spell, while the Light Magic professor uses her Holy Cross spell, which first freezes the monster before trying to destroy it. But to their surprise, that was of no use, and the monster looks just as strong and energetic as before. The Red Master and the Wind Master decide to try their luck at it, as they use their spells synergistically, producing a huge flaming tornado, which the Blue teacher thinks should be enough to destroy most of the monsters from the face of Earth. To their surprise, the monster seems to be completely unaffected. In fact, the Wind Master notes that the monster seems to be getting even bigger and stronger the more they are using their spells on it. Finally, the monster decides to strike back and shoots its tentacles at them. But the Yellow Master immediately uses an Earth Wall spell to create a shield between them, capturing the monster inside a huge prison. They all get a moment of relief as they thought that the magic was enough to contain the beast, but to their horror, the wall starts breaking. The Yellow Master tells his peers that they must figure out a way to stop it soon, since he won't be able to hold on for much longer. The Flame Master suggests combining all their magics at once and attack the monster, hoping that it would overwhelm and completely destroy the beast. But the Light Master claims that it is a singularly bad idea, since the monster seems to be absorbing and growing from the magic damage, and they don't know how strong it could get if they all poured their energy into it. The Blue Master starts freaking out, wondering how the hell are they supposed to fight something like this. The Slimes manages to slowly break out of its prison while Arrol observes it from above with Maddie. Realizing that he seems to have learned every single magic spell there is to learn at this academy, Maddie asks what exactly does he mean by that. Frustrated by and Arrol claims that he has learned all the magic spells from the book and just wanted to see what the masters were capable of and whether they had any magical abilities, which he hasn't learned before. Now that he has seen it all, he thinks that he has learned everything there was to learn at the Magic Academy. Maddie looks at the slime, claiming that it's not any simple monster, but a demon from the demon realm, and that's why it seems to be so troublesome for the teachers here. Maddie tells Arrol that the monster has the ability to absorb any and everything that they throw at it, and grow bigger and stronger through that. Arrol asks, what if they use a magic so strong that it overwhelms the demon, or use physical attacks so destructive that the monster can't even comprehend it in the first place? Maddie claims that he doesn't think that anyone has the magic, or the physical abilities to do that much damage here, but Arrol claims that he is going to try it regardless. He immediately summons a sword and rushes at the monster, delivering a massive strike at it, cutting off a huge chunk from it. Maddie is surprised that he was able to cut the slime, but Arrol is not happy, as within moments, the slime manages to regrow the damaged part. Suddenly, all the teachers arrive floating on a flying carpet, asking Arrol whether he is a magic swordsman class. But Arrol replies that he is classless. They tell him not to joke right now, but he tells them to back off as the slime attacks people with loads of mana, as that is how it grows stronger. The teachers quickly realize that the slime is causing all this destruction in the city because it is heading towards the city hall where all their students are present at once. The Red teacher refuses to leave a student behind to fight alone, but Arrol tells them to make sure the other students are safe first, as he can take care of himself and slow the beast down. The teachers begrudgingly agree that they are of no use here, and decide to head towards the city hall. Arrol quickly creates a stone wall to capture the monster before summoning a bunch of golems and using the infinite break attack. All to his surprise, even such a strong attack wasn't really able to do any real damage, as the golem starts regenerating once again. At this point, Arrol decides to try his luck with magic again and takes out his wand before preparing a huge flame magic attack. Maddie claims that it won't be enough, but Arrol isn't planning to use just the flame spell. To everyone's surprise, he starts channeling through all the different magic circles, one by one, before combining them into one huge LGBTQ circle. He remembers his dad telling him to avoid using this magic as if done wrong. It could be catastrophic. But more than that, Arrol realizes that he doesn't seem to have enough mana reserves, and his dad's mana must be off the charts. Just when he thought that his plan was going to fail, suddenly a bunch of mana starts flooding in his body, as through the power of friendship, and say, __, the professors manage to channel the mana of their students into Arrol, who uses the incredibly powerful attack to completely decimate every single thing beneath him, removing the slime from existence in one fell swoop. With that, the students cheer as Arrol descends down back to the ground, while the teachers huddle around him asking how the hell did he manage to use all the spells at once, as that magic is legendary class and only mage lords can do that. He replies that his father is a mage lord, and told him that only through mastering the magic from each school can a person become a mage lord. The professors soon realize that their study system seems to be flawed, as they only ever teach one form of magic to their students, which means that they can never really produce any mage lords. Suddenly, Arrol spies a little piece of the slime still moving and picks it up before taking it back home. He uses a servant seal on it and makes it another one of his familiars, useful for getting rid of trash. Suddenly, Kufa, Kaido, and Call all burst in through the door, asking whether he is going to leave. Arrol tells them that he is in fact going back home since there is nothing left for him to learn here. And from home, he will head towards the City of Monsters and learn all he can about all the different kinds of monsters present in the world. The kids are a little sad that Arrol is leaving, but they all say their goodbyes and watch as Arrol leaves into the sunset back towards his village. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. HKH. Back with our hero, Maddie points out that it's been a while since Arrol was in his home village. Arrol says that he hasn't been back since he came to the City of Magic, so it's been about a year. Maddie's clearly bothered by something, so he explains that he can't even imagine what kind of people Arrol's parents are. He doesn't even believe it when Arrol tells him that his parents are just normal villagers. Maddie assumes that Arrol is going to tell him that his parents are classless like him, but it's quite the opposite. Arrol reveals that his mother is a sword god and his father is a mage lord. Maddie's completely shocked by this, and he points out that that isn't normal at all. They come across a small village, so Arrol decides to stay there for the night. Later, Arrol and his crew enjoy a bath when a girl asks if she can join them. This place allows mixed bathing, so Arrol says that he doesn't mind. Maddie hides himself so he doesn't bring attention to the fact that he's a demon, and the girl wonders what Arrol's name is. Arrol introduces himself, and Maddie finds it odd when the girl doesn't introduce herself in return. They chat about how Arrol just came to this village by chance, but Maddie whispers to him that this girl is not just some ordinary person. Arrol reveals that he already knows, because he can tell just by looking at her. Maddie's disappointed because he realizes that Arrol doesn't care if she attacks him. He will probably just get excited because he will get to see new skills. Arrol's glad to hear that Maddie knows him so well, but Maddie can't believe that his master is so crazy. The girl wants to know what the purpose is of Arrol's journey, and his answer is simply to get stronger. She wonders if he likes to fight, but Arrol says not necessarily. He just wants to find out how strong he can get as someone who is classless. The girl finds it hard to believe that he's classless, but Arrol confirms that he really is. Arrol explains that he doesn't have any skills either, but none of that has held him back. The girl wonders if people laugh and make fun of him for being classless, but Arrol hasn't even thought about it. He assumes that people do, but it doesn't bother him. The girl finally tells Arrol that he should come to her home, which is the Empire. In the Empire, there are no people that will laugh at him for being classless, because the Empress banned that behavior. She is sure that Arrol will have an easy life there, and Arrol says that it sounds like a pretty good country. The girl is elated, because it sounds like he wants to go, but Arrol surprisingly refuses. He doesn't mind how things are, and besides that, there's somewhere else that he wants to go. The girl tries to make her case again, but Arrol says goodbye as it's time for him to go. Arrol goes to eat dinner with his crew, and Maddie wonders if Arrol made the right decision by turning down the girl's offer. Arrol wonders why he's bringing it up again, and Maddie just says that he thinks Arrol might be happy living in the Empire. It might lead to Arrol not needing him anymore. So, Maddie imagines that Arrol will set him free. Arrol tells him that it was a nice try, but that won't be happening. The next morning, the girl appears, and she stops Arrol from continuing his journey. She reveals that she's one of the 8 Imperial Generals and the shinobi princess named Korea. By order of the Empress, Arrol has no choice but to come with her. Arrol simply reminds her that he won't be going, but Korea has a major problem with this. She reiterates that he doesn't have a choice, because the Empress's orders cannot be defied. Arrol calmly explains that he couldn't care less and he has nothing to do with that Empress. On top of that, Arrol can't understand why the leader of some country is looking for him anyway. Courier doesn't know all the details, but it has something to do with an important mission. The Empress has been searching for a classless man named Arrol for a long time, and they finally found him. Arrol says that it doesn't change his mind, so Korea reveals that the Empress is... This means that she will do no harm to Arrol, and she can be trusted. Arrol can only sigh as he once again says that he won't be going. K-Ray realizes that they aren't getting anywhere, so she has no other choice. She goes in to attack her boy, but he easily evades her. He says that if it's a fight she wants, then he won't show any mercy. Arrol absolutely destroys her with one attack, and he tells the 10 other people that have been hiding to come out and show themselves. 10 ninja appear from the shadows, and they wonder how Arrol knew they were there. They used the stealth skill to hide their presence, and it should have been impossible to detect them. Arrol knows all about the skill, and he points out that it can't erase the fact that its user still exists. One person may fly under his radar, but 10 people gives him enough uneasy vibes to notice them. The ninja is still shocked by this, and we see that one of them is the girl that was watching Arrol leave Magic City. She is surprised when Korea gets back up, but Korea explains that she is fine. Arrow is surprised himself as he notices that Korea's divine protection hardly dissipated from his attack. He determines that while she's very young, Korea is clearly the strongest one in their group. After the other girl heals Kua, she begins to cry because she doesn't like seeing Korea's adorable face covered in mud. Kura reminds everyone to focus, and she orders them to capture Arrol. She warns them to be careful, though, because Arrol is not a mere classless person. Kua orders for them to all attack at once, and they all pounce on our hero. Nearby, some girl tells her group to hurry up. If they don't get to their destination in time, then Korea will be the one to capture Arrol. In the air, we see that another person is after our hero as well. She goes as fast as she can and says that she must catch the classless Arrol as soon as possible for the Empress. The girls manage to catch up with Korea, but they are shocked to see that her entire group was wiped out. They can't figure out what happened, and they wonder how many people Korea's group was up against. The purple girl is still conscious, and she reveals that they fought just one person. She begins to explain who this person was by saying that he's classless, but she passes out before she can finish. The other girls are in disbelief, because there's no way that one classless person could have done this to all of them. They wonder who this guy they're after really is, and we hear Arrol's voice. He wonders if Korea brought more of her friends, and we see that he was enjoying an after-battle snack. Maddie points out that he tried to tell Arrol to leave this place, and now they're finding more trouble. Arrol retorts that it couldn't be helped because all the fighting made him hungry. Arrol approaches the others, and they say that he definitely has the aura of a formidable foe. One of them declares that she's the Dragon Princess Dora, and she's one of the esteemed 8 generals of the Empire. She doesn't waste any time, and she tells Arrol that he will come with them to see the Empress. The Beast Lord named Tagora tells her to hold on a second because that duty is hers. Arrol's done hearing who these girls are, so he just tells them that how they fight will be their choice. They can all come at him at the same time, or they can attack him one after another. However, he does have one thing to ask of them. They can't believe how calm he is, and Arrol reveals that he wants each of them to attack with the best skill they have. Tiger is more than happy to accept his request because it means that his body is going to pay for all the things his big mouth says. Dora is on board as well, as she tells Arrol to try not to lose his life until they bring him to the Empress. Arrol isn't scared of their talk at all, and he looks forward to seeing some new skills. The girls prepare their attack, and they just hope that Arrol's ready for it. Moments later, we see that Arrol was more than ready, as he wiped the floor with these girls. Arrol's really disappointed because he fought all these warriors and none of them showed any notable skills. Maddie can't believe how casual he always is, and he says that Arrol needs to start thinking of himself as being superhuman. Arrol doesn't entertain the idea. Instead, he just wonders why this Empress is so desperate to see him. Just then, one of the girls says that the Empress reigns supreme as the strongest of the land. Arrol's surprised to see that Kura has already regained consciousness, and he's kind of impressed. Kura has to admit that Arrol's pretty strong, but she declares that he's no match for the skill of the Empress. Kura loses consciousness again, so she doesn't get to see that she said the magic words. She said that Arrol would be no match for the skill of the Empress, so he is curious about what kind of skill this could be. It's very mysterious, and he wonders if it works differently from his mom's swordsmanship and dad's magic. Maddie can't believe what he's hearing, because he realizes what's coming next. Arrol's curiosity has reached its peak, so he declares that it's time to head to the nation where the Empress is. A while later, Arrol arrives at the Imperial Castle. He's immediately met by a group of warriors who thank him for going out of his way to come here. The Battle Princess Rihanna then introduces herself as one of the 8 Imperial Generals. Brea says that she's also one of those, and she's something called a Spectre Lord. The great Saint Fina is next to introduce herself, and she asks Arrol to come with them to see the Empress. Finally, the Pirate Princess Kina welcomes Arrol, and she wonders if he would like to battle. Arrol is not one to turn down an offer to fight, as he says that if she's showing him skills, then he will battle her as much as she wants. He's willing to fight them all, but he doesn't want to hear any complaining when they get hurt. Maddie says that the girls shouldn't even try, but it's too late as they prepare for battle. Inside the castle, the Empress is annoyed because Arrol hasn't been brought to her yet. She is told that the generals should be bringing him any time now, but she is shocked when the generals collapse behind her. Arrol finally arrives, and he's disappointed because none of the 8 Imperial Generals had any amazing skills to see. They were pretty easy to defeat, and nothing about them was very impressive. The girl named Ernella is at a loss for words because Arrol saying that he defeated the 4 generals that were supposed to bring him to the Empress. Arrol's done talking, so he demands to know where the Empress is. He wants to know what business she has with him, but more importantly, he wants to see her special skill. Ernella is one of the 8 generals as well, and she's a magic swordsman, so she wants to battle Arrol next. She's interrupted, though, when Arrol's big sister rushes to hug him, and she says that she missed him. Arrol demands for her to give him some answers because he doesn't understand why she's acting as an empress. E.T. can't believe that he forgot. So she says that this is all because she made a promise to Arrol, just like she promised she made her own country, without class discrimination. Here, people don't belittle the classless, so Arrol can live an enjoyable and peaceful life, just like she said he would. All the generals admire her because Esther is so thoughtful. Esther declares that their entire family will get to live here together because she's going to send for the rest of them. Arrol says that she doesn't need to, but E.T. is so caught up in her great plan that she doesn't even hear him. She assumes that he's agreeing with her, but she realizes that it won't be necessary because he won't be staying. Astaire is insulted because she did this all for him and she worked really hard to do it. Arrow thanks her because he's grateful, but there are things that he wants to do elsewhere. He has goals that he needs to achieve, so he can't stay here forever. She can only wonder what his goals are because she can't imagine a better place for a classless person to live. Arrol can't deny that he's classless, but he points out that being classless is what allows him to master anything he wants. Unlike everyone else, his potential is limitless. This is perfect for him because he also enjoys putting in the hard work to improve himself. Spending his time learning new skills, customizing them, and getting stronger is a lot of fun for him. Besides that, leaving home and traveling led to him meeting lots of different types of people. He was able to learn that each of them had their own ideas and goals. All those experiences he had also made him grow, and that was enjoyable too. So while he is grateful for what his sister has done, Arrol wants to keep moving freely. Esther realizes that she has to accept his decision, and she's impressed because her brother really became an adult. She's actually happy for him. So she says that he can do what he wants. Arrow thanks her, and he promises to come back to see her when he feels up to it. He goes to leave, but Astaire isn't done yet. She says that if that's how he wants it, then she will do whatever she wants as well. With Arrow's back turned, Esta stands up, and her eyes starts to glow. Arrow is pleased to see what she's doing because this is the strongest skill that makes anyone obey the Empress. It's called Heaven's Will, and it's like sending it. Aranella is a bit surprised, and she wonders if Aster would relieves this power to make her younger brother do what she says. Esta doesn't think there's any problem with it because little brothers are supposed to obey their older sisters anyway. Esther then uses this skill on him as she tells Arrol to stop. Arrol stops in place and he wonders if this is Astaire's doing. He then tells Arrol to turn around and she explains that she's been waiting for this day for a really long time. Astaire then shocks everyone by declaring that Arrol will become the emperor of this nation. The generals are shocked to see the side of the Empress, but the crazy girl is not ashamed. She uses her ability to force Arrol to obey her order, but he doesn't respond. She assumes that Arrol's just being shy, so she will have to take things into her own hands. Astaire goes in to make it official, but Arrol surprisingly kicks her right in the face. She can't understand why her skill isn't working on him, because Heaven's will is absolute. Arrol explains that he heard that the Empress's skill was the strongest. That is why, on the way here, he spent some time thinking about what the skill could be. He understood from the moment he was first struck that something wasn't right. He wasn't stuck because she cast a charm spell on him, or because his legs were physically unable to move. Arrol was able to tell that she was using the spirit of wind to stop him in his tracks. After countering that, Arrol thought about how her skill worked in order to cast Heaven's Will. Astaire probably needs her target to hear her voice. That is why he used wind magic to make it so that he couldn't hear anything around him. That isn't her skill's only limitation, as Arrow realized that air can't give two different orders at the same time. Astaire is completely defeated, so all she can do is break out in tears. Arrow does admit that her skill might really be the strongest, but it depends on how she uses it. For example, he can tell that Astaire made the 8 Imperial Generals follow her using the skill. The generals say that he's wrong, though, because they have very good reasons for following the Empress. They say that they are deeply moved by her will, and they choose to follow her to the bitter end. They're all on the same page, because the Empress's devotion to the country is undeniable. Arrol's shocked to hear this, but he's glad to see that his big sister has also grown up. He's happy to see that she's doing well, so he says that he will see her later. Esta is completely depressed, but she realizes that Arrol still worries about her after all this time. This means that he must love her, so she vows to become stronger for the next time they meet. A while later, Arrol returns home and his parents happily welcome him back. They're happy to see that he's doing well, and Arrol explains that he has gotten stronger. Farah doesn't mind him going wherever he wants. She just says that she doesn't want him to get hurt. Arrol understands, and Farah just wishes that he would have let them know ahead of time that he was coming home. Mira is the next to greet him, and Arrol says that she's gotten taller. Mira points out that it's been a year since he left, so she makes him promise never to disappear again without telling her first. Maddie is surprised to see that his family really does seem normal, and Mira is amazed to see the little guy. She thinks that Maddie is some kind of souvenir, so she wonders if she can have it. Arrol tells her that she can do whatever she wants with it, and he says that she can play with his pet too. Maddie tries to remind Arrol that he's an advanced class demon deserving of respect, but Mira just starts poking him in the face. Arrol tells his parents that Arya is doing well, and we see that Rain is happy to see Arrol. That night, Maddie sobs after a day of being treated like a doll. Rhea goes to see Arrol, and she wonders if they could talk for a while. Arrol is okay with it, so Reiner explains that she wanted to hear about his experience in the City of Magic. She's not alone, because Arrol would also like to hear about what Rhea has been up to. Reiner is surprised to hear this, because she always thought that Arrol had absolutely no interest in her. This is not the case, though, because Arrol would like to hear about her intense training that she did while he was gone. It's been an entire year, so he's eager to find out how much stronger she has gotten. Rain is a bit disappointed, because she realizes that Arrol was only interested in her strength. Their conversation begins. So, Arrol starts by explaining how he met 3 wizard kids. The next morning, everyone is worried as they hear Mira screaming. Mira rushes into the kitchen and reveals that Arrol left again. Everyone is really shocked, but we see that his parents are actually really proud of him. Even Reina knows how Arrol is, so she had a feeling that he would go adventuring again. Meanwhile, we see Arrow flying through the sky. A glimpse of what's going on with Lilia shows that she is doing well. She is helping her father get their guild back on track, and she's making tons of money. The 3 wizard kids in the City of Magic are also enjoying their lives. Arrow happily moves on to the next chapter of his life, and he wonders what type of skill he will encounter next. The world is filled with endless possibilities, so he is sure that there are plenty of skills left to learn, and he can't wait to learn them. Thanks for watching my recap.